You're too fat to ever be worth anything." Those were the last words Clara Vale heard before she climbed onto a stranger's horse and disappeared into the Montana darkness. Behind her, a father who treated her like livestock. Ahead, a man whose empire was built on blood and lies. She had 22 years of shame carved into her bones, and exactly one chance to become something more than the daughter nobody wanted. This is her story. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far Clara's journey reaches. The fence post cracked under Clara's hammer, splitting wrong. She swore, the kind of words her mother would have slapped her for, and threw the hammer into the dirt. It was 4 a.m. Her hands were already bleeding. The Montana cold bit through her worn coat, the kind of cold that made your lungs hurt when you breathed too deep. February on the Vale Ranch meant frozen water troughs, sick cattle, and her father's voice cutting through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. "Clara, where the hell are you?" She didn't answer. Let him find her himself for once. The ranch was dying. Had been dying for 3 years, ever since her mother passed and took all the sense with her. Her father, Marcus Vale, had the business instincts of a drunk mule, which, to be fair, described him pretty accurately most mornings. He'd gambled away their water rights in a poker game last spring, sold their best breeding bull to pay for Celeste's piano lessons, borrowed money from men who didn't forgive missed payments. And through it all, Clara fixed fences at 4 a.m. while her hands bled and her father pretended she didn't exist. "There you are." Marcus appeared around the barn, his face red even in the weak lantern light. Not from cold. Never from cold. "What the hell are you doing out here?" "The south pasture fence is down. Again. I'm fixing it. Again." "That can wait. Get inside and make yourself presentable." Clara looked down at herself. Mud-splattered work pants, oversized coat, boots held together with wire and prayer. Presentable for what? "We have company coming. Important company." Something in his voice made her stomach drop. That eager, desperate tone he got when he thought he'd found an angle, a way out. "What did you do?" she asked. "Nothing yet. But the Blackwood boy is coming through town, Victor Blackwood's son. You know what that means?" Everyone in Montana knew what that meant. The Blackwoods owned half the territory, ranches, timber rights, mining claims, politicians. Victor Blackwood was the kind of rich that bent reality around itself. And his son Riker was supposedly worse, colder, meaner, the kind of man who'd buy your land out from under you and sleep fine that night. "It means we smile, stay out of his way, and hope he doesn't notice how bad things are here," Clara said. Marcus's laugh was ugly. "It means opportunity, girl. Riker Blackwood's looking for a wife." The world tilted sideways. "No," Clara said. "Don't be stupid. This is our chance." "Our chance? You mean Celeste's chance?" She picked up the hammer again, gripped it too tight. "Because we both know you're not talking about me." Her father's face twisted. There it was. The look. The one she'd seen her whole life. Disappointment and disgust mixed together. "Don't be ridiculous. A man like Riker Blackwood wants a wife who can stand beside him in society. Someone refined. Delicate." He gestured at Clara vaguely, like she was a broken piece of equipment. You're too big, Clara. Too rough. Hell, you dress like a ranch hand and smell like one too. No rich man wants that. 22 years of that voice. 22 years of being too big, too loud, too much work, and not enough grace. Her sister Celeste was everything Clara wasn't. Slender, elegant, soft-spoken. Their mother's daughter. While Clara had inherited their father's broad shoulders, thick waist, and apparently his talent for disappointment. "Then why are you telling me?" Clara asked quietly. "Because you need to stay out of sight when he arrives. Last thing we need is you embarrassing us. Make yourself useful in the kitchen. Help Celeste get ready." He started to walk away, then stopped. "And Clara, try not to eat everything before our guests arrive. You don't need the extra portions." He left her standing in the frozen darkness, hammer in her bleeding hands, rage burning so hot in her chest she thought she might vomit. Inside the house, chaos. Celeste stood in front of their mother's old mirror while Mrs. Chen from town pinned her hair into something elaborate. At 17, Celeste had their mother's delicate features, honey-colored hair that actually behaved, and a waist Clara could probably wrap her hands around. "Clara." Celeste's face lit up when she saw her. Come help me choose a dress. The blue one or the cream? Doesn't matter. You look perfect in everything. It came out harsher than Clara meant. Celeste's smile faltered. I didn't ask for this, Celeste said quietly, after Mrs. Chen left to fetch more pins. I know what Father's planning. It's horrible. It's practical, Clara said, pumping water to wash her hands. The cuts stung. A Blackwood marriage would save the ranch, save all of us. But what if I don't want to marry some stranger? What if he's cruel? What if… Then you smile anyway. You do what you have to do. That's how this works. Celeste looked at her sister's reflection in the mirror. You're angry. I'm tired. You're always tired, and you're always angry, and you never talk to me anymore. Clara dried her hands roughly. What do you want me to say, Celeste? That I'm thrilled to help you get pretty for the rich man? That I love being the beast while you play beauty? That's not fair. Oh. Fair? Clara laughed. It sounded broken even to her own ears. None of this is fair. Fair would be Father noticing I'm the one keeping this place running. Fair would be anyone in this family treating me like something other than an embarrassment they have to hide when company comes. Celeste's eyes filled with tears. Perfect, delicate tears that made her look even more beautiful. I'm sorry, Clara said immediately, hating herself. I'm sorry. That wasn't… I'm just tired. The blue dress. Wear the blue one. It makes your eyes look like sapphires. She left before Celeste could respond, before she could see her sister cry, before the jealousy and love and resentment tangled up in her chest could choke her completely. The Blackwoods arrived at noon. Clara watched from the barn loft, hidden in the shadows. 3 riders, 2 men she didn't recognize, and in the center, someone who could only be Riker Blackwood. He sat his horse like he owned the ground beneath it. Dark hair, dark clothes, dark everything. Even from a distance, Claire could feel the weight of him, the kind of presence that sucked air out of a room. Rich didn't even begin to cover it. His horse probably cost more than the entire Vale Ranch. Her father rushed out like a dog greeting its master, all smiles and handshakes and apologies for the state of things. Clara couldn't hear the words, but she could read the desperation in every gesture. Then Celeste emerged. Even Clara had to admit her sister looked stunning. The blue dress, the carefully pinned hair, the shy smile. She looked like something out of a painting. Exactly the kind of wife a man like Riker Blackwood would want. Clara waited for it. The moment when Riker's face would change. When he'd see Celeste and realize he'd found exactly what he came for. But he barely looked at her. His attention swept past Celeste, past Marcus's eager face, past the shabby ranch house with its peeling paint. His gaze moved across the property like he was cataloging its worth, calculating its value, dismissing it. And then his eyes stopped. On the barn. On Clara. She froze. Somehow, impossibly, he'd spotted her in the shadows. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across the yard. His expression didn't change, didn't soften or harden, just looked. Then one of his men said something, and the moment broke. Riker turned his horse and followed Marcus toward the house. Clara exhaled. What the hell was that? She stayed hidden for the next hour while her father gave the Blackwoods a tour. Showed them the house, leaking roof carefully not mentioned, the livestock, what was left of it, the land, mortgaged 3 times over. Desperation made people stupid, and Marcus Vale was desperate enough to be an idiot. Clara knew she should stay away, should hide like he'd told her to. But she couldn't stop herself from drifting closer, listening through the walls. Absolutely charming, her father was saying. Celeste plays piano beautifully, speaks French. She'd be an asset to any man's household. Mr. Vale. Riker's voice cut through the sales pitch like a knife. I appreciate the hospitality, but I should be direct. I'm not here to court your daughter. Silence. I don't understand, Marcus stammered. I'm here to see the ranch. I heard you might be interested in selling. Selling? No, I mean, we've had some difficulties, but you're 3 months behind on your mortgage. You owe money to half the territory. Your herd's been decimated by disease and mismanagement. Riker's tone was flat, factual, brutal. This ranch is worth more dead than alive. I'm offering you a way out before the bank takes it anyway. Through the wall, Clara heard her father's breath catch, heard the moment his hope shattered. Please, Marcus said, and Clara had never heard him sound like that. Small, broken. Please, This is my family's land, my daughter, both my daughters. Your daughters need a father who knows when he's beaten, Riker said. Not cruel, worse, truthful. Take my offer. Walk away with enough to start over somewhere else. And if I refuse, then I'll buy the land from the bank in 3 months anyway. But you'll walk away with nothing. Clara leaned her forehead against the rough wood of the barn wall. So that was it. Not a marriage proposal, a execution, clinical and efficient. She should have known. Men like Riker Blackwood didn't save failing ranches out of kindness. They harvested them. Footsteps. The meeting was breaking up. Clara moved quickly, slipping back toward the shadows. But she wasn't fast enough. As the men emerged from the house, Riker's gaze found her again. This time he walked toward her. "You're Marcus's other daughter," he said. Not a question. Up close, he was even more intimidating, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that looked black in the afternoon light. Somewhere in his late 20s, maybe. Old enough to have earned the reputation that preceded him. "Clara," she said, then immediately felt stupid for giving him her name. "You've been fixing the south fence. How did he—" "I noticed it from the road," Riker said, reading her expression. "Old repair job. Recent work. Different style. Someone who actually knows what they're doing." "That's me. The one who knows what she's doing." The bitterness slipped out before she could stop it. "Not that anyone notices." Something flickered in his expression. "I noticed." Behind him, Marcus was making frantic gestures, telling her to leave, to disappear, to stop embarrassing them. "You should go," Clara said to Riker. "My father's right. I'm not who you're here to see." "No," Riker agreed. "You're not." The words stung more than they should have, confirmation of everything she'd always known. But then he said, "I came here expecting to find a failing ranch and a desperate father. Instead, I found someone who's been holding this place together with bloody hands and not enough help." Clara's breath caught. "The fence work, the cattle organization, the water system repairs." Riker's gaze didn't waver. "That's all you, isn't it? Not your father, not your sister, you." She couldn't speak. "How much of this ranch is running because of you?" he asked. "All of it," Clara whispered, then louder. "All of it. I do everything, and he's going to sell it anyway." "Yes," Riker said simply. "He is." "Then why are you telling me this? Why do you care?" He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "Because I recognize what it looks like when someone's wasting their life keeping other people's failures from collapsing. And I'm wondering if you recognize it too." "What are you—" "Come work for me." The world stopped. "What?" "I need people who can actually run a ranch, who understand cattle, land, work, not socialites, not decorations." His eyes held hers. "I'm offering you a job. I can't just— My family needs— Your family needs money. I'll pay your father's debts as part of your employment contract. They'll be taken care of. But you—" He paused. "You get to stop being invisible." It was impossible. Insane. She didn't even know this man. But God, something in her chest was screaming yes. "I need to think," Clara managed. "You have until tomorrow morning. I'm leaving at dawn." Riker turned to go, then stopped. "And Clara, that fence in the south pasture, you're using the wrong gauge wire. It'll snap again in the next storm. Use 16 gauge next time." He walked away, leaving her standing there with her heart pounding and her mind racing. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room under the eaves, listening to the house settle and creak. Down the hall, her father was drinking. She could hear the clink of the bottle, the muttered curses. Celeste appeared in her doorway around midnight, wrapped in their mother's old shawl. "You're thinking about it," Celeste said quietly. "Going with him." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Clara, not you." Celeste sat on the edge of the bed. "I saw how he looked at you, how you looked at him. He offered me a job, that's all." "Is it?" Clara closed her eyes. Even if it's something more, I can't. Father needs me. You need me." "Father needs someone to blame for his failures," Celeste said softly. "And I need you to show me that it's possible to leave." Clara looked at her sister, really looked, Saw the fear there, the trapped feeling. He'll marry me off, Celeste continued. Maybe not to Riker Blackwood, but to someone. Anyone who'll take our debts. And I'll go because I'm too scared to do anything else. She took Clara's hand. But if you leave, if you choose yourself, maybe someday I'll be brave enough to do the same. Celeste, go, her sister whispered. Please, before we both waste our whole lives here. Clara didn't sleep. At 4 a.m, her time, she packed what little she owned. 2 changes of clothes, her mother's wedding ring. A photograph so faded you could barely see the faces anymore. She wrote a note, tried to. Threw away 7 versions before settling on, I'm sorry, I love you, don't look for me. She left it on Celeste's pillow. The house was silent as she crept downstairs. Her father's snoring rattled from his room. The kitchen still smelled like last night's burned dinner. Clara paused at the front door, looked back at the only home she'd ever known. Every floorboard, every stain, every broken thing she'd tried so hard to fix. Then she stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness. Riker was waiting by the barn, already mounted, his men ready to ride. He didn't look surprised to see her. You have a horse? He asked. No, father sold her last month. Riker held out his hand. Then you ride with me. Clara hesitated. This was it. The moment. Once she took his hand, there was no going back. Behind her, the house was dark. Dead. A tomb she'd been buried alive in. She took his hand. His grip was strong, steady. He pulled her up behind him in one smooth motion. Clara grabbed onto his coat, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. You're sure? Riker asked quietly. No, she wasn't sure about anything. Yes, Clara said. He spurred the horse forward. They were 50 yards gone when the shouting started. Clara! Clara! Her father's voice raw with rage and panic. A window banged open. Get back here! You ungrateful, get back here right now! Do you hear me? Clara looked back once. Saw him in the doorway, half-dressed, fury making him huge. No rich man wants a fat girl, Marcus screamed after them. You hear me? He's lying to you. You're nothing. Nothing. The words hit like bullets. Riker's back tensed. You want me to stop? Every instinct screamed at Clara to apologize, to go back, to be small and quiet and invisible again. Instead, she held on to Riker tighter and said, No, don't stop. They rode into the sunrise and Clara didn't look back again. By noon, the Vale Ranch was a memory on the horizon. They rode hard, stopping only to water the horses. Riker's men, a grizzled ranch hand named Cole and a younger man called Jesse, kept their distance but stayed alert, watching the tree line, watching the road. Are we being followed? Clara asked during one stop. Not yet, Riker said, but we will be. Why? He handed her a canteen. Because my father doesn't approve of my hiring decisions, and because in Montana territory, a woman leaving her family causes talk. Talk causes problems. Your father, Victor Blackwood. You've heard of him. Everyone had heard of Victor Blackwood, the man who'd built an empire through ruthlessness and strategy, who owned senators and crushed competitors, who made the Vanderbilts look humble. Is he as bad as they say? Clara asked. Riker's laugh was cold. Worse, but he's also smart enough to recognize value, eventually. And you think I have value? It wasn't a question, but Riker answered anyway. I think you've been running a dying ranch with no resources and no support for years. I think most men I know couldn't do what you've done. He looked at her directly. I think you're going to be very good at what I need, or you're going to hate me and leave within a month. Encouraging. I don't deal in encouragement, I deal in facts. He mounted his horse again. The Blackwood Ranch runs 15,000 head of cattle across 200,000 acres. We have 300 employees, 24 foremen, and enemies in every direction. It's brutal work, dangerous work. Most people can't handle it. And you think I can? I think you've been handling worse with less your entire life, Riker said. Now you'll just get paid for it. They reached the Blackwood Ranch at sunset on the 3rd day. Clara had thought she was prepared, had heard the stories about the size, the wealth, the power. She wasn't prepared. The main house sat on a rise like a king surveying his domain. 3 stories of stone and timber with wings stretching in both directions. Barns that looked bigger than the entire Vale property. Corrals that went on forever. Workers moving everywhere, efficient and organized. And in front of the house, waiting, Victor Blackwood himself. He was older than Clara expected, mid-50s maybe, with silver in his dark hair and lines carved deep around his mouth. But his eyes were sharp, calculating. The eyes of a man who missed nothing and forgave less. "Father," Riker said, dismounting, "I'd like you to meet Clara Vale. She'll be working as—" "I know who she is," Victor cut him off. His gaze swept over Clara, dismissive and thorough. "Marcus Vale's fat daughter, the one he couldn't marry off." The words landed like a slap. Clara felt herself shrinking, felt the old instinct to apologize for taking up space, for existing, for being seen. But then she felt Riker's hand on her shoulder. Steady, grounding. "Clara will be working with the ranch operations," Riker said, his voice neutral but firm. She has experience failing," Victor said. "The Vale Ranch is bankrupt. Whatever she did there, it wasn't enough." "The Vale Ranch was already dead," Clara heard herself say. "I just kept it breathing a few extra years." Both Blackwood men looked at her. Victor's expression didn't change. Bold words for someone who arrived here covered in trail dust with nothing but the clothes on her back. "Would you prefer I lie?" Clara asked. "Pretend I come from money and success?" "I don't. I come from a dying ranch that my father destroyed through stupidity and gambling. I kept it alive by working harder than any man I knew. It still died anyway. Those are facts." Silence. Then Victor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "At least she's honest," he said to Riker. "How refreshing. Most people who come here spend the first week kissing my ass and telling me how grateful they are." He looked back at Clara. "You're not grateful, are you?" "No, sir. I'm tired, hungry, and wondering if I made a massive mistake." Victor's laugh was sharp and genuine. "I like her. She'll be broken and gone in a month, but I like her." He turned to one of the house staff. "Get her fed and settled. The West Wing. Not the good rooms. She hasn't earned those yet." He walked away without another word. Clara let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "Welcome to the Blackwood Ranch," Riker said quietly. "Still want to stay?" Clara looked at the enormous house, the impossible wealth, the man who'd just casually insulted her in front of everyone. "Ask me again in a month," she said. Riker almost smiled. The West Wing was nicer than anywhere Clara had ever slept. The room had a real bed, not a cot or a pile of blankets, but an actual bed with a mattress and pillows. A window that looked out over the northern pastures. A wash basin with clean water. A closet that was completely empty because she had nothing to put in it. Clara sat on the bed and cried. Not sad crying, not really. Just release. The past 3 days catching up with her all at once, the fear and adrenaline and impossible choice finally draining away. She'd done it. She'd actually left. And she had absolutely no idea what came next. A knock at the door made her wipe her eyes quickly. "Come in." A woman entered, tall, black, maybe 40, with calloused hands and sharp eyes. "Name's Ruth. I run the house staff. Mr. Riker asked me to check on you." "I'm fine." Ruth's expression said she didn't believe that for a second. "You eat yet?" "No." "Come on then. Kitchen's still warm." Clara followed her through hallways that seemed to go on forever, down a servant's staircase, into a kitchen that was bigger than the entire Vale house. 3 other women sat at a long wooden table, 2 younger, 1 closer to Ruth's age. They all stopped talking when Clara walked in. "This is Clara," Ruth said, pulling bread and cold chicken from somewhere. "She's working with the ranch operations. Starting tomorrow, probably." The women exchanged looks. Clara could read them clearly. What's a girl like that doing in ranch operations? "I know what I'm doing," Clara said, sitting down. "I ran my family's ranch for 3 years." "Into the ground, I heard," one of the younger women said. "Not mean, just factual." "Sarah," Ruth warned. "No, she's right," Clara said. "I did run it into the ground, because it was already drowning and I was the only one bailing water. I couldn't save it, but I learned every damn thing about cattle, land, water rights, fence repair, winter feeding, disease management, and creative problem solving while I failed." The women considered this. "You know anything about accounting?" the older woman asked. Running the books? Enough to know when someone's cheating you. Why? Because the ranch foreman's been skimming for months, Sarah said. Everyone knows it, but Mr. Victor won't fire him because the man's been here 20 years. Ruth shot Sarah a look that could have curdled milk. What? Sarah said. She's going to find out anyway. Clara filed that information away. Who else is skimming? The women laughed. Not unkindly. More like relieved. Oh, you're going to fit in just fine, Ruth said. The next morning, Clara reported to the ranch office at 5 a.m. Riker was already there, along with 4 men who looked at her like she was a stain on the furniture. Gentlemen, Riker said, this is Clara Vale. She'll be working with operations starting today. Doing what? One of them asked. Older guy, weathered face, suspicious eyes. Whatever needs doing, Riker said. Clara, this is James. He runs the cattle operations. Frank handles equipment and repairs. David manages the books, and Thomas coordinates with our other properties. They nodded, didn't offer to shake her hand. We're heading out to the North Range today, James said to Riker, pointedly not looking at Clara. Checking the herd before we move them to winter pasture. It's rough country, long ride. Sounds good, Clara said. I'll get saddled. Now wait, James started. Is there a problem? Riker asked, his tone perfectly neutral. It's hard riding, long hours. I've been riding since I was 5 and working cattle since I was 12, Clara interrupted. If you're worried I can't keep up, I'll sign a waiver. If you're worried I'll complain, I won't. And if you're worried I'll get in the way. She looked James dead in the eye. Then watch me and see. Silence. Then Riker said, mount up in 10 minutes. They rode for 6 hours straight, through creek crossings and steep climbs and terrain that would have killed Clara's old mare. The men pushed the pace, testing her, she knew, waiting for her to ask for rest or water or a slower pace. Clara gritted her teeth and kept up. By midday, they'd reached the North Range where 2,000 head of cattle grazed across rolling hills. James started shouting orders, coordinating the ranch hands who'd ridden out earlier. Clara watched, learned, saw how the Blackwood operation ran, efficient, organized, ruthless. Everything her father's ranch hadn't been. You, James called to her, think you can separate out the yearlings? It was another test. Cutting cattle required skill, timing, and a good horse. I can try, Clara said. She spent the next 2 hours doing exactly that. The horse Riker had given her was better trained than anything she'd ever ridden, which helped. But it was still hard work, physically demanding, requiring total focus. By the time James called a break, Clara's legs were shaking and her back was on fire. But she'd done it. Separated out 47 yearlings without losing a single one. James rode over, his expression unreadable. You ride like someone who learned young and learned right. My mother taught me, Clara said, before she died. He nodded slowly. Then, the men are eating. You should too. It wasn't much, but it was something. They rode back to the main ranch as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of fire. Clara was so exhausted she could barely stay upright in the saddle. Every muscle hurt. Her hands were bleeding again from the reins, but she'd survived the first day. Riker rode up beside her as they approached the barns. You did good. I kept up. You did better than kept up. James doesn't give compliments. What he said to you, that was high praise. Clara managed a tired smile. Does this mean I get to stay past a month? That depends. Can you keep doing this? Every day if you need me to? Even when it gets harder? Clara looked at him, really looked, saw something in his expression she couldn't quite read. Why did you really hire me? She asked quietly. It's not just about ranch work. You have dozens of people who can do what I do. Riker was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that only she could hear. Because I've spent my entire life watching strong people get overlooked because they didn't look the right way or come from the right families. And I'm tired of pretending that's how things should be. He met her eyes. You deserved better than the Vale Ranch, Clara. Whether you believe that yet or not. Something in Clara's chest cracked open. Before she could respond, one of the ranch hands came running. Mr. Riker, there's a rider coming in fast, says it's urgent. They all turned to look. A single rider pushed his horse hard up the main road, dust flying. As he got closer, Clara recognized him, one of the men from town, Mr. Patterson's son. He reined in hard, his horse foam-flecked and heaving. "What's wrong?" Riker demanded. "There's trouble in town," the rider gasped. "The Gordon Ranch. Someone's been poisoning their water supply. Killed 20 head of cattle already. They're saying it's you, saying the Blackwoods are trying to run them out." "That's a lie," Riker said flatly. "I know that. You know that. But John Gordon's got 50 armed men, and he's riding this way right now. Says he's going to get justice whether the law gives it to him or not." Clara's blood went cold. 50 armed men. Coming here. This was Montana justice. Fast, brutal, and usually fatal. Riker's jaw tightened. "How long do we have? 2 hours? Maybe less. Then we have work to do." Riker turned to his men. "James, gather everyone who can shoot. Frank, break out the rifles. Thomas." "Wait," Clara said. Everyone looked at her. "If you prepare for a fight, you'll get one," she said. "And even if you win, you'll have enemies forever. The Gordon Ranch will never forgive you. Every other ranch in the territory will take sides. This will never end." "What do you suggest?" Riker asked. "Let them burn us down?" "No. I suggest we find out who actually poisoned their water before they get here, and prove it wasn't you." James laughed. "Girl, we've got 2 hours. There's no way." "The poison had to come from somewhere," Clara interrupted. "Someone who knew the Gordon land, knew their water sources, knew enough to make it look like the Blackwoods." She looked at Riker. "Who benefits if you and the Gordons destroy each other?" Understanding dawned in Riker's eyes. "Carson," he said quietly. "Richard Carson's been trying to buy land from both of us for months. And if you and the Gordons wipe each other out, he can swoop in and buy everything for nothing," Clara finished. "That's just a theory," James protested. "Then let's prove it," Clara said. "Or disprove it. Either way, we need evidence before Gordon gets here. Otherwise, this ends in blood." Riker looked at her for a long moment. Then, "James, take 5 men to Carson's ranch. Find evidence. Anything that connects him to the poisoning. You've got 90 minutes. And if we don't find anything?" James asked. "Then we fight," Riker said simply. "But at least we'll have tried the smart way first." The men scattered. Clara realized she was shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the insane things she'd just done, suggesting strategy to men who'd been running this ranch for decades. "That was either brilliant or suicidal," Riker said to her quietly. "Ask me in 2 hours," Clara said. He almost smiled again. 90 minutes later, James rode back. He had proof. Receipts from Carson's purchase of arsenic. A witness who'd seen Carson's men near the Gordon water supply. A note in Carson's own handwriting detailing the plan. It was enough. When John Gordon arrived with his 50 men, Riker met him at the property line, alone except for Clara. "This is suicide," Cole had muttered when Riker announced his plan. "No," Riker said. "This is trust." They stood in the road as Gordon and his men approached, an army on horseback, rifles visible, faces hard with rage and grief. "Blackwood!" Gordon shouted. "You've got about 10 seconds to explain before—" "It wasn't me," Riker said, loud and clear. "It was Richard Carson, and I can prove it." He held up the documents. Gordon reined in his horse 20 feet away, suspicious. "The hell are you talking about? Carson's been trying to buy both our ranches for months. We both refused, so he poisoned your water supply and made it look like us. He wanted us to kill each other so he could pick up the pieces." "That's convenient. That's documented." Riker threw the papers to the ground between them. "Check them yourself. I've got witnesses willing to testify. I've got receipts. I've got everything you need to know I'm telling the truth." Gordon didn't move. His men shifted restlessly. Then Clara stepped forward. "Mr. Gordon," she said, "I don't know you. You don't know me. I've got no reason to lie for the Blackwoods. I've been here less than a week. But I grew up on a failing ranch. I know what it's like when someone more powerful tries to destroy you. And I know what it looks like when someone's telling the truth, even when it sounds impossible." She met his eyes. "Riker Blackwood is telling the truth. You can shoot him and find out later you killed an innocent man. Or you can look at the evidence and find the person who actually murdered your cattle." Silence. Then Gordon dismounted, slowly. Walked forward, picked up the papers, read them. His face changed. Shock. Rage. Realization. Carson, he breathed. That son of a bitch. Yeah, Riker said. Gordon looked up. If you're lying, I'm not, and I'm willing to ride with you to confront him, right now. Another long silence, then Gordon extended his hand. I'll take that offer. They shook. 50 armed men turned their horses toward Carson's ranch instead, and Clara Vale, the fat girl from the failing ranch, had just stopped a war. That night, Victor Blackwood summoned Clara to his study. She'd never been in this part of the house, all dark wood and leather and books that probably cost more than her life. Victor sat behind a desk the size of a wagon, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Sit, he commanded. Clara sat. Victor studied her in silence for a full minute. Then, my son tells me you prevented a massacre today. I suggested an alternative. Riker did the actual work. Don't be modest. It doesn't suit you. Victor sipped his whiskey. I've been running this ranch for 30 years. In that time, I've faced dozens of conflicts. Range wars, water disputes, property feuds. Do you know how I usually solve them? Violence? Money. I buy my enemies out or crush them until they break. It's effective, brutal, expensive. He set down his glass. Your solution today cost me nothing but pride, and it turned a potential enemy into an ally. Thank you? Clara wasn't sure if this was a compliment or not. I'm not thanking you. I'm acknowledging you. Victor leaned forward. My son sees something in you. I thought he was being sentimental, hiring you as some kind of charity case. I'm not a charity case. No, you're not. His eyes were sharp. You're a problem solver with nothing to lose. That makes you dangerous, useful, and potentially very valuable. Clara met his gaze. Or potentially very disposable if I stop being useful. Victor smiled. Actually smiled. See, that's what I like about you. You understand how this works. No illusions, no romanticism. He poured another whiskey. The world chews up dreamers and idealists, but survivors, we're harder to digest. Is that what you are? A survivor? That's what we both are, Victor said. You survived a father who treated you like livestock. I survived poverty, prejudice, and 50 years of people trying to tear me down. We recognize each other. He stood up, dismissing her. Keep doing what you did today. Keep making my son's idealism functional. Do that, and you'll go farther here than you ever imagined. Clara walked back to her room in a daze. She'd come here expecting to work on a ranch, to fade into the background, to earn a paycheck and maybe, eventually, earn some respect. Instead, she'd stopped a war, earned Victor Blackwood's acknowledgement, and somehow become something more than invisible. She sat on her bed, her real, soft bed, and realized she wasn't crying this time. She was planning. Because for the first time in her life, Clara Vale had power. Not much. Not yet. But enough. And she was never, ever giving it back. The first month at Blackwood Ranch passed like a fever dream. Clara woke every morning at 4:30, dressed in the dark, and worked until her body screamed for mercy. Cattle drives that lasted 16 hours. Fence repairs in driving rain. Account books that didn't balance because someone, multiple someones, had been stealing for years. And through it all, the whispers. Blackwood's charity case. Fat girl playing cowboy. Give her 2 months before she quits. Clara heard every word, ignored most of them, used the rest as fuel. 6 weeks in, she was reviewing supply orders in the ranch office when the door slammed open. A woman stood there, mid-20s, blonde, wearing a riding outfit that probably cost more than Clara made in a year. "Where's Riker?" the woman demanded. Clara looked up from the ledgers. "Out with the timber crew. Won't be back until Thursday." "And who exactly are you?" "Clara Vale. I work here." The woman's laugh was sharp. "Oh, you're the one. I've heard about you." She walked into the office uninvited, looking Clara up and down with undisguised contempt. "I'm Victoria Sterling, Riker's fiancée." The word hit Clara like a physical blow. Fiancée. "He never mentioned—" Clara started. "Of course he didn't. Men like Riker don't discuss their personal lives with the help." Victoria settled into Riker's chair like she owned it. "We've been engaged for 2 years. Our families have been planning the marriage, since we were children." Clara kept her face neutral. "Congratulations." "Don't." Victoria's smile was ice. I know why you're here. What you think might happen. Girls like you always think there's a chance that maybe the rich man will notice you, fall in love, save you from your pathetic life. I'm here to work. Please. You're here because Riker has a savior complex. He finds broken things and tries to fix them. But here's what you need to understand. You're a project, a temporary amusement. When he gets bored, and he will get bored, you'll be gone and I'll still be here. Clara stood up slowly. Are you finished? Not even close. I'm here to make sure you understand your place, which is nowhere near my future husband. So whatever little fantasy you've been building in that delusional head of yours, kill it now. I don't have fantasies about your fiancé, Clara said evenly. I have work to do. If you'll excuse me. She walked out before Victoria could respond, before the woman could see how badly her hands were shaking. Riker was engaged. Of course he was engaged. Men like him didn't stay single. Didn't save women like Clara because they saw something special. They hired employees. That's all this was. All it had ever been. The realization shouldn't have hurt as much as it did. Clara made it to the barn before the tears came. Angry tears, humiliated tears, tears she absolutely did not have time for. She was wiping her face with her sleeve when Ruth found her. Victoria's here, Ruth said quietly. I noticed. Did she give you the speech? Clara looked up. The speech? The stay away from my man speech. She gives it to every woman under 40 who works here. Thinks we're all trying to steal Riker. Ruth handed Clara a handkerchief. For what it's worth, most of us think she's a nightmare. She's his fiancée. She's his father's business arrangement, Ruth corrected. The Sterling family owns half the railroad contracts in Montana. Victor wants those contracts. Victoria wants the Blackwood name and money. It's a transaction. Does Riker want her? Ruth hesitated. Riker does what his father tells him, always has, even when it kills him inside. Clara wiped her eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because you look at him different than Victoria does. She looks at him like he's a prize bull at auction. You look at him like he's a person. Ruth squeezed her shoulder. Just be careful. The Blackwood family eats people who care too much. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying Victoria's words, Ruth's warnings, the whole impossible situation. Around midnight, she gave up and went to the kitchen for water. Riker was there. He sat at the long wooden table in the dark, still in his work clothes, looking more exhausted than Clara had ever seen him. You're back early, she said. Timber contracts fell through. Didn't need 3 days to hear no. He glanced at her. Can't sleep? Met your fiancé today. Riker's jaw tightened. Victoria came here? Gave me a very informative talk about knowing my place. Clara poured water, kept her tone light. She seems lovely. She's... Riker stopped, started again. It's complicated. Sounds simple to me. You're engaged. Congratulations. Clara, don't. You don't owe me explanations. I work for you. That's all this is. She made herself look at him. That's all this has ever been, right? The silence stretched too long. Right, Riker finally said, but something in his voice sounded wrong, hollow. Clara left before she could analyze it, before she could hope for something that didn't exist. The next morning, Victor summoned her again. This time, Victoria was in the study too, standing beside Victor's desk like they were already family. Miss Vale, Victor said, we need to discuss your future here. Clara's stomach dropped. Are you firing me? That depends. Victoria has raised some concerns about your proximity to my son. I work with your son on ranch business. She works for Riker, Victoria corrected. There's a difference, and lately I've noticed she's been taking liberties, offering opinions above her station, acting like she has authority she hasn't earned. I prevented a range war, Clara said flatly. You got lucky, Victoria shot back, and now you think you're indispensable. That Riker needs you, he doesn't. We have dozens of qualified people who can do your job without creating inappropriate situations. Victor held up his hand. What Victoria is politely trying to say is that your role here needs clarification. You're valuable, Miss Vale, but you're not irreplaceable. The words stung. True words usually did. Understood, Clara said. Good. Then we're clear. Victor opened a folder. Now, about the Northern Timber contracts. Actually, Clara interrupted, Since we're clarifying my role, I should probably clarify something too. Both Victor and Victoria stared at her. Your foreman, James, has been skimming cattle sales for 8 months, Clara said. Frank's been overbilling on equipment repairs and pocketing the difference. And Thomas, the man who handles your books, has a gambling problem and owes money to people who don't accept late payments. Victor's face went very still. How do you know this? Because I've been doing the actual accounting for 6 weeks. The numbers didn't match, so I checked. And then I checked again. And then I spent 3 nights going through every ledger from the past year. Clara met his gaze. You're losing approximately $40,000 annually to internal theft, maybe more. Hard to say since Thomas has been covering his tracks pretty well. Silence. Then Victor said very quietly, "Show me." Clara spent the next 2 hours laying out every discrepancy, every falsified record, every stolen dollar. Victoria watched with barely concealed fury. Victor's expression never changed. When Clara finished, Victor sat back in his chair. "How long have you known?" he asked. 3 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I said anything. And you didn't think to mention this earlier? You told me I wasn't irreplaceable, Clara said. I figured I should wait until I had proof I was necessary. Victor laughed, actually laughed. You manipulative little... He shook his head. You waited until Victoria tried to fire you to drop this bomb. I'm a survivor, Clara said, echoing his words from weeks ago. You said so yourself. This is ridiculous, Victoria said. She's obviously fabricated this to make herself seem important. The numbers don't lie, Victor interrupted. I'll verify everything she said, but if she's right, and I suspect she is, we have bigger problems than your jealousy. I am not jealous of some overweight ranch hand. Get out, Victor said. Victoria's mouth fell open. Excuse me? You heard me. This is business now. You're not part of it. For a moment, Clara thought Victoria might actually explode. Her face went red, her hands clenched into fists. Then she turned and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Victor looked at Clara. You just made a very powerful enemy. I had one already. Might as well earn it. Fair point. He stood up. I want every person you identified brought to my office, today, and I want you there when I question them. Why me? Because you found them. You get to watch them fall. Victor's smile was cold. Welcome to how power actually works, Miss Vale. Use it or lose it. The interrogations took all afternoon. James denied everything until Clara produced receipts with his signature. Frank claimed it was a misunderstanding until the math proved him wrong. Thomas broke down crying and admitted to debts that would have gotten him killed if he couldn't pay. Victor fired all 3 on the spot. No second chances, no mercy. You're lucky I'm not having you arrested, he told them. Get off my property. If I see any of you again, I'll finish what I started. They left. Broken. Ruined. Clara felt sick watching it. Having regrets? Victor asked after the last man was gone. They have families, kids. They stole from me. Actions have consequences. Victor poured whiskey. You're going to need to develop a thicker skin if you want to survive in this world. I don't want to survive by destroying people. Then you'll be destroyed yourself. That's how this works. He drank. The world isn't fair, Miss Vale. It's brutal. And the only way to win is to be more brutal than everyone else. Is that what you taught Riker? Victor's expression darkened. I taught my son to be strong, to take what he wants, to never apologize for power. He looked at Clara. But somehow, he still has this infuriating streak of conscience, picks up strays, tries to save people who can't be saved. I blame his mother. She must have been a good woman. She was weak, and weakness killed her. Victor set down his glass. Don't make the mistake of thinking kindness is strength, Miss Vale. In the end, only power matters. Clara left his office feeling like she needed a bath. That evening, she found Riker in the stables, brushing down his horse. He looked up when she entered. I heard what happened, he said, with the men you identified. Your father fired them. They deserved it. Their families didn't. Clara leaned against the stall door. How do you live with it, being this ruthless? Riker was quiet for a long moment. You think I like it? I think you're good at it, which is almost worse. My father built this empire by crushing anyone who got in his way, He's destroyed families, ruined lives, taken everything he wanted without hesitation. Riker's hand stilled on the brush, and he raised me to do the same, to see people as assets or obstacles, nothing in between. But you don't see people that way. I try not to. He looked at her. But it's hard. When you're raised by a man like Victor Blackwood, violence and cruelty start feeling normal, expected, and fighting against it feels like fighting gravity. Is that why you're marrying Victoria? Because your father expects it? Riker flinched. It's complicated. That's what you keep saying. But from where I'm standing, it looks simple. You don't love her, she doesn't love you, but you're going through with it anyway because Daddy wants railroad contracts. You don't understand. Then explain it to me, Clara said, because right now it looks like the man who told me to stop being invisible is perfectly happy being a puppet. Riker's face hardened. You're out of line. I know. Fire me if you want. Clara pushed off the stall door. But maybe think about why you brought me here in the first place. Was it really just about ranch work? Or did some part of you want someone around who'd tell you the truth instead of kissing your ass? She walked away before he could answer. 3 days later, everything exploded. Clara was working in the north pasture when she heard the screaming. She rode back to find chaos, smoke pouring from one of the equipment barns, men running with buckets, flames already consuming the roof. What happened? She shouted at Cole. Don't know. 1 minute everything's fine. Next minute the whole place is burning. They fought the fire for 2 hours before getting it under control. By then, the barn was destroyed. $30,000 in equipment gone. And worse, written in the dirt near the barn entrance, a message, Blackwoods burn next. Victor called an emergency meeting that night. Every ranch hand, every employee, everyone who worked on the property crowded into the main hall. Someone is trying to destroy us, Victor announced. This fire was deliberate. The message was clear. We're under attack. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Now I could hire Pinkertons, bring in guns, turn this ranch into an armed camp. Victor's voice was steel. But that's what they want. They want us scared, defensive, weak. So what do? Someone called out. We work harder. We show whoever did this that Blackwoods don't break. We rebuild that barn in a week. We double our production. We prove that you can't burn us down. The speech worked. Claire could see it on their faces, fear transforming into defiance. But later, in Riker's office, the mask dropped. We're in trouble, Riker said bluntly. Clara had been invited to the War Council, her, Riker, Victor, and a few trusted advisors. The fire's just the beginning. Whoever's behind this wants us destroyed. It's Carson, one of the advisors said. Has to be. We humiliated him with that poisoning evidence. It's not Carson, Clara interrupted. He's too obvious. Everyone would suspect him. Then who? Victor demanded. Clara pulled out a map she'd been working on. In the past 6 months, 4 ranches near Blackwood property have had disasters. The Gordon water poisoning, a stampede that killed 15 head at the Morrison place, a mysterious illness at the Chen Ranch, and now our fire. She pointed to the map. All of these ranches sit on land that's valuable for one reason. They're between the Blackwood Empire and the new railroad line. Whoever controls this corridor controls access to the railroad, which means controlling trade for the entire territory. So someone's clearing the land, Riker said slowly, making it cheap to buy. Exactly. They attack the Blackwoods, blame it on Carson. Attack Carson, blame it on the Blackwoods. Make everyone so paranoid and weak that when they offer to buy, it looks like rescue instead of robbery. Victor studied the map. You're saying someone's manipulating all of us. I'm saying someone's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Who? Victor demanded. Clara hesitated. Then, have you noticed that every disaster happened after a visit from Sterling Railroad representatives? Dead silence. You're accusing the Sterlings? One of the advisors gasped. Victoria's family? I'm saying it's suspicious. The timing, the targets, the fact that Sterling Railroad would benefit massively from controlling this entire corridor. Clara looked at Riker. And the fact that they're very eager to marry into the Blackwood family right before all this chaos started. Riker's face had gone pale. That's insane, he said. The Sterlings they're respected. They wouldn't they? Victor's voice was quiet, dangerous. They've been trying to buy my railroad contracts for years. I've always refused, but if I was desperate enough, weak enough. He looked at his son. A marriage would give them access to everything. Our land, our resources, our connections. You don't know that, Riker said. This is speculation. Then let's find proof, Clara said, before the next disaster. Finding proof turned out to be harder than Clara expected. The Sterlings were careful. Their lawyers were better. Every transaction was clean, every contract legitimate. But Clara was stubborn. She spent 2 weeks digging through railroad records, land purchases, financial transfers. She interviewed workers, talked to the other affected ranchers, pieced together a pattern so subtle it was almost invisible. Almost. They're using shell companies, she explained to Riker one night, spreading papers across his desk. A dozen different business names, all registered in different territories. But if you trace the ownership back far enough, they all connect to Sterling interests. That's not illegal, Riker said, but his voice was strained. No, but this is. She showed him a contract. 3 months ago, Sterling Railroad purchased insurance on your northern timber operation, the same operation that's been having mysterious equipment failures and accidents. Riker's hands clenched. They insured my operation without my knowledge? Actually, they bribed your insurance agent to add it without telling you, which means when disasters happen, Sterling Railroad collects the payout, not you. That's fraud. That's profit. Clara showed him more papers. They've done it to 6 different Blackwood operations. Every time something goes wrong, they collect money while you lose resources. And eventually, when you're weak enough, they'll offer to buy you out as a mercy. Riker looked sick. Victoria? Did she know? I don't know. But her father definitely knew. He signed off on every transaction. For a long moment, Riker just stared at the evidence. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and punched the wall hard enough to split his knuckles. Riker, I was going to marry her, he said quietly. In 6 months, I was going to stand up in front of everyone and marry a woman whose family has been destroying mine from the inside. You didn't know. I should have known! He whirled around. I should have questioned it. Should have wondered why Victoria suddenly wanted to marry me after years of barely tolerating my existence. But I did what my father told me, like always. Clara stood up slowly, walked over to him. So stop. What? Stop doing what your father tells you. Stop being the puppet Victoria called you. Stop letting other people decide your life. She met his eyes. You're Riker Blackwood. Act like it. Something shifted in his expression. If I do this, if I expose the Sterlings, it's war. They'll destroy us. They have lawyers, politicians, money, and we have the truth, Clara said, plus evidence of fraud, plus every other ranch they've screwed over who'll testify against them. That might not be enough. Then we make it enough. Clara's voice was steady. Unless you'd rather just marry Victoria and let them win. Riker looked at her for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. You're terrifying, you know that? I'm a survivor. You hired me for that. I hired you because you were brave enough to leave everything you knew. Turns out you're also brave enough to pick a fight with the most powerful family in Montana. Are you scared? Clara asked. Absolutely. Good. So am I. She smiled slightly. Let's do it anyway. Exposing the Sterlings required careful planning. They couldn't just accuse one of Montana's most prominent families without ironclad evidence. So Clara spent the next 3 weeks building an airtight case. Every fraudulent insurance claim, every shell company, every bribed official. And then she found the smoking gun. Letters, she told Riker, spreading them out. Between Victoria's father and a man named Harrison Wolfe. Wolfe's a known arsonist who works for whoever pays best. These letters detail specific targets, specific dates, including the Blackwood equipment barn. Riker's face was stone. Where did you get these? Better if you don't know. Actually, Clara had broken into the Sterling Railroad office at 3 a.m, picked the lock on the filing cabinet, and photographed everything she could find. Ruth had been lookout. Sarah had forged credentials to get them past security. It was possibly the most illegal thing Clara had ever done. It was also absolutely necessary. With these, we can go to the territorial governor, Riker said. Have them arrested. And watch them bite their way out of it within a week, Clara interrupted. No, we need something bigger, something public, something they can't escape. What did you have in mind? Clara smiled. How do you feel about throwing a party? The Blackwood Summer Gala was a Montana institution. 200 of the territory's wealthiest and most powerful families, all gathered to see and be seen. Victor had been planning it for months. Clara suggested they move up the date. "You want to expose the Sterlings at our own party?" Victor demanded when she proposed the idea. "I want to expose them in front of everyone who matters," Clara corrected. "Every territorial official, every business leader, every newspaper. Make it so public they can't bury it, so documented they can't deny it." Victor considered this. "It's risky. If we're wrong, we're not wrong. I have proof. If the proof isn't enough, we'll be destroyed. Blackwood credibility will be ruined. And if we do nothing, the Sterlings will destroy you slowly instead. Pick your poison." Victor looked at his son. "Your call. It's your wedding this will ruin." Riker didn't hesitate. "Do it. Schedule the gala. We're ending this." The next 2 weeks were chaos. Clara worked 20-hour days preparing evidence, coordinating with lawyers, making sure every piece of documentation was bulletproof. Ruth and the house staff transformed the ranch into something out of a magazine. Riker handled the guest list, making sure every important person in Montana would be there. And Victoria showed up 3 days before the gala, oblivious to the trap closing around her. "Darling," she said, kissing Riker's cheek in a performance of affection, "I'm so excited for the party. Everyone's talking about it." Clara watched from across the room, invisible as always. "I'm sure they are," Riker said neutrally. "I've already picked out my dress. Blue silk, very expensive, Daddy insisted." Victoria smiled. "He's so proud of our engagement. Says the marriage, is the best thing that ever happened to Sterling interests." "I'm sure he does." If Victoria noticed the ice in Riker's voice, she didn't show it. She chatted for another 10 minutes about seating arrangements and menu selections, then swept out like a queen surveying her future kingdom. The moment she was gone, Riker looked at Clara. "How do you do it? Watch her and not say anything?" "Years of practice being invisible," Clara said. "You learn to hide what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you want." "And what do you want?" The question hung in the air between them. Clara could have lied, should have lied, but she was so tired of hiding. "I want Victoria's family destroyed," she said quietly. "I want you free of that engagement. And I want—" She stopped, started again. "I want things I have no right to want." Riker crossed the room in 3 strides, stopped close enough that Clara could feel the heat of him. "Say it," he said. "Riker, say what you want." Clara's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "You. I want you. I have since the first day, and I've spent 2 months pretending I don't, and I'm so tired of pretending." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Riker kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't soft. It was desperate and hungry, and 2 months of tension finally breaking. Clara grabbed his shirt, pulled him closer, kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Riker pressed his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea," he said. "The worst," Clara agreed. "If my father finds out, he'll fire me. Maybe worse. And if Victoria finds out, she'll burn this place down herself." Riker laughed shakily. "So we're doing this anyway?" Clara kissed him again. "We're survivors. Terrible ideas are our specialty." The night of the gala arrived. 200 guests filled the Blackwood estate, glittering in jewels and silk, and enough wealth to fund a small country. Orchestra music floated through the halls, champagne flowed like water. Clara stood in the shadows wearing a borrowed dress, one of Ruth's, taken in at the waist and let out everywhere else. She felt ridiculous, exposed, wrong. "You look beautiful," Riker said, appearing beside her. "I look like I'm playing dress-up." "Good. So does everyone else here." He offered his arm. "Ready? To destroy Montana's most powerful family in front of everyone who matters? Absolutely not." "Perfect. Let's go." The announcement came during dinner. Victor stood at the head of the room, glass in hand, commanding attention the way he commanded everything. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "Tonight is supposed to celebrate my son's engagement to Miss Victoria Sterling, a union of 2 great families, a new chapter in Montana's future." Victoria smiled, radiant and confident. "But before we toast to that future," Victor continued, "I believe in transparency, in truth, in making sure everyone knows exactly what they're celebrating." The room went quiet. "So I'd like to share some information that recently came to light. Information about the Sterling Railroad Company and their business practices. Victor nodded to Clara. Miss Vale, if you would. Clara stood up on shaking legs, walked to the front of the room. 200 pairs of eyes locked on her. For the past 6 months, Clara began, her voice somehow steady, ranches across this territory have experienced mysterious disasters, poisoned water, suspicious fires, equipment failures. These disasters seemed random, unconnected. She showed the first piece of evidence, a map with marked properties. But when you look at the pattern, something becomes clear. Every affected property sits along the proposed railroad expansion route, and every disaster happened after a visit from Sterling Railroad representatives. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Victoria's smile faltered. Furthermore, Clara continued, Sterling Railroad has been purchasing fraudulent insurance policies on Blackwood operations. When disasters occurred, Sterling collected the payouts while the Blackwoods absorbed the losses. She showed financial records, insurance documents, shell company connections. The murmurs grew louder. And finally, Clara said, we have correspondence between Sterling Railroad executives and known criminals, including this letter dated 3 weeks before the Blackwood equipment barn burned, detailing exact specifications for that fire. She held up the photograph. The room exploded. Victoria's father shot to his feet. This is outrageous, a fabrication. We'll sue for defamation. Please do, Victor said calmly. I have copies of everything for the territorial governor, the attorney general, and every newspaper in Montana. Sue away. Those documents are fake. They're photographed originals, Clara said. With your signature, your seal, your handwriting analysis will confirm it. Sterling's face went purple. You broke into my office. This is theft, illegal search. Actually, a voice said from the back, everything was obtained with proper legal warrant. The territorial governor stepped forward, flanked by 2 federal marshals. Mr. Sterling, the governor said, you're under arrest for fraud, arson, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges. The list keeps growing. Chaos. Sterling tried to run. The marshals caught him. Victoria screamed accusations. Her mother fainted. Guests rushed for exits or pressed closer for better views. Through it all, Clara stood at the front of the room, watching the Sterling Empire collapse. Riker appeared beside her. You did it. We did it. No. He looked at her. This was you, your investigation, your courage, your refusal to let them get away with it. Clara watched Victoria being escorted out by her mother, still screaming about lawyers and lies and revenge. I just destroyed your wedding, Clara said quietly. Thank God, Riker said. And then, in front of 200 witnesses, Riker Blackwood kissed Clara Vale like she was the only person in the world who mattered. The crowd went absolutely silent. Then Victor's voice cut through the quiet. Well, I suppose this means we need new seating arrangements. The room burst into laughter and applause. Later, much later, after the guests had left and the staff had cleaned up and the scandal had settled into stunned acceptance, Clara found herself alone with Victor. You've made quite the impression tonight, Victor said. I've made quite the enemies. Same thing in my experience. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey. The Sterlings will come after you, legally, if they can, other ways if they can't. I know. And you did it anyway, knowing the cost. Clara accepted the whiskey. Some things are worth the cost. Victor studied her. You love my son. It wasn't a question. Yes, Clara said. He's going to disappoint you, hurt you. He's a Blackwood. Cruelty is in our blood. He's also kind, brave, better than he thinks he is. That's his mother in him, the weakness I tried to burn away. Victor sipped his drink. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe that weakness is actually strength. Clara nearly dropped her glass. Did Victor Blackwood just admit he was wrong? Don't get used to it. But his expression was almost soft. You're good for him. Good for this family. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making us better than we deserve to be. He left her standing there, wondering if this was another fever dream. Clara walked out onto the terrace. The Montana night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. Riker found her there. Hiding? He asked. Processing. Tonight was A lot. You destroyed the Sterling Empire, saved mine, became the scandal of the season. He stood beside her. Just another normal evening. Clara laughed. I'm never going to fit here, in your world. I'm too big, too rough, too poor. Stop. It's true. Stop, Riker repeated. He turned her to face him. You're brave, you're brilliant, you're the strongest person I've ever met. And yes, society's going to judge you, talk about you, try to tear you down. But you know what? What? I don't care. Let them talk. Let them judge. You're mine now. If you want to be. His throat tightened. I want to be. He kissed her again, slower this time, softer, like a promise instead of an explosion. When they broke apart, Clara realized she was crying. What's wrong? Riker asked. Nothing. Everything. She wiped her eyes. I never thought anyone would choose me, actually choose me. Not settle for me or use me or tolerate me. Choose me. Then you haven't been around the right people, Riker said, because I choose you over anyone. Every time. Clara believed him. For the first time in her life, she actually believed she was worth choosing. The stars wheeled overhead. The ranch settled into quiet. And Clara Vale, the fat girl from the failing ranch, stood in the arms of the man who'd seen her when everyone else looked away. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Sterlings would retaliate. Society would judge. The world would keep trying to break her. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged. And that was enough. The scandal broke across Montana like a wildfire. Within a week, every newspaper from Helena to Billings ran the story. Sterling Railroad Empire collapses under fraud charges. Blackwood Ranch exposes criminal conspiracy. Society engagement ends in arrests and accusations. And underneath every headline, in smaller print, investigation led by former ranch hand Clara Vale. Clara woke up famous, and she hated every second of it. Reporters camped outside the Blackwood gates. Photographers tried to sneak onto the property. Letters arrived by the hundreds, some praising her courage, others calling her a liar, a whore, a fat opportunist who'd seduced Riker Blackwood to steal his fortune. Don't read them, Ruth advised, finding Clara in the kitchen at 2 a.m, surrounded by hate mail. I can't help it. It's like watching a train wreck. Clara held up one particularly vicious letter. This one says I'm too ugly to have accomplished anything on my own, that I must have blackmailed the Blackwoods into helping me. People are idiots. People are terrified, Clara corrected. The Sterlings were untouchable. If they can fall, anyone can fall. So they're looking for reasons why it doesn't apply to them. And the easiest reason is that I'm a liar. Ruth sat down across from her. You doing okay? Really? Clara laughed, but it sounded broken. I destroyed one of Montana's most powerful families. I'm being called every name imaginable. Half the territory thinks I'm a hero, the other half thinks I should be in jail. And somewhere out there, my father is probably drinking himself to death while telling anyone who'll listen that his fat daughter ruined everything. She crumpled the letter. So yeah, I'm great. Have you heard from your sister? The question hit harder than Clara expected. No, she said quietly. Nothing. I wrote to her 3 times. No response. Maybe your father won't let her respond. Maybe she doesn't want to. Clara stood up, started cleaning the scattered letters. Maybe she thinks I abandoned her, left her alone with him while I ran off to play princess at the Blackwood Ranch. You didn't abandon her. You saved yourself. Same thing, from where she's sitting. Ruth helped gather the letters. You can't save someone who won't reach for the rope, Clara. You know that. Clara did know that. Didn't make it hurt any less. The next morning brought worse news. Your father's selling the ranch, Riker said, finding Clara in the stables. I just got word. He's accepted an offer from a development company out of Denver. Clara's hand stilled on the bridle she was repairing. How much? Less than it's worth. A lot less. He's desperate. And Celeste? The sale includes a provision. Your father keeps enough money to pay his debts and live on for a few years. The rest goes into a trust for your sister's dowry. Clara's stomach turned. He's selling her too. Just differently. Looks that way. Riker hesitated. There's more. The buyer is demanding vacant possession within 30 days. That means your father and sister need to be gone by then. Where will they go? I don't know. Your father hasn't made arrangements as far as I can tell. He's just taking the money and hoping it works out. Clara closed her eyes. Saw her sister's face. 17 years old, trapped with a drunk father who'd just lost everything, about to be homeless with nothing but a dowry that would make her a target for every fortune hunter in Montana. I have to go, Clara said. I have to see her. Try to help. Clara, Riker's voice was gentle. Your father made it clear you're not welcome. If you show up, he'll... I don't care what he does to me. Celeste is alone. I can't just... Her voice cracked. I can't abandon her again. Riker was quiet for a moment. Then, let me come with you. At least then, no, this is something I need to do myself. Clara looked at him. But thank you for offering. She rode out that afternoon, alone. The journey to the Vale Ranch took 6 hours. 6 hours to remember every fence she'd fixed, every morning she'd woken before dawn, every year she'd spent keeping that place alive. The ranch looked worse than she remembered. Fences sagging, buildings in disrepair. The whole property had the feel of something already dead, just waiting for someone to bury it. Clara tied her horse near the barn and walked toward the house. Her father was on the porch, bottle in hand. He looked up as she approached, and his face twisted with rage. Get off my property, Marcus said. I came to see Celeste. You came to gloat. Show off how well you're doing while your family falls apart. He stood up, unsteady. You proud of yourself? Destroying the Sterlings? Getting your name in every newspaper? Shaming your family? I exposed criminals. That's not shame. You made us look like trash. Everyone knows you're from here now, knows you're my daughter. They're laughing at me, saying I couldn't even control my own fat daughter, let alone run a ranch. The word should have hurt. A month ago, they would have destroyed her. Now Clara just felt tired. Where's Celeste? She asked again. None of your business. She's 17 and about to be homeless. That makes it my business. She's got a dowry. She'll find a husband. Unlike you, no man wants a woman who humiliates powerful families for fun. Clara took a breath, held her temper. I didn't come here to fight. I came to help. Whatever you think of me, Celeste is innocent in all this. Celeste doesn't want your help, Marcus said. Doesn't want to see you. Doesn't want anything to do with the sister who abandoned her for a rich man. I didn't abandon her. Oh, you left. You climbed on that horse and rode away and didn't look back. You think she didn't cry for a week? You think she didn't wait for a letter, a message, anything? Guilt crashed over Clara. I wrote to her 3 times. I burned the letters. The admission hung in the air. You... What? I burned them, Marcus repeated. Every one. Because you don't get to leave this family and then come crawling back when it's convenient. You made your choice. Now live with it. Clara's hands clenched into fists. You had no right. I have every right. I'm her father. You're a drunk who destroyed everything our mother built. The words exploded out of her. You gambled away our future, sold our assets, drove this ranch into the ground, and instead of taking responsibility, you blamed me. Called me fat, worthless, embarrassing. You made me feel like I was the problem when the problem was always you. Marcus's face went purple. Get out. Not until I see Celeste. I said, get out! He threw the bottle. Clara dodged, but it shattered against the porch post, spraying whiskey and glass. A door slammed inside the house. What's going on? Celeste's voice, small and scared. She appeared in the doorway, thinner than Clara remembered, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw Clara, something complicated flickered across her face. Celeste, Clara said, I came to... Why are you here? Celeste interrupted. Her voice wasn't angry, just empty. I heard about the sale. I wanted to make sure you were okay, to help if I could. Help? Celeste laughed bitterly. Like you helped by leaving? By not looking back for 3 months? I wrote to you. Father burned the letters. Did you? Celeste descended the porch steps slowly. Or is that just convenient to say now that he's drunk enough not to remember? The accusation stung. I wrote to you, Clara repeated. I told you about the ranch, about the work, about... She stopped. I told you I missed you. Celeste's expression cracked slightly. You left me here with him, alone. Do you know what that's been like? I know it was selfish. It was survival, Celeste said. And I understand that, I do. But Clara, I needed you too, and you chose yourself. The truth of it hit Clara like a punch. You're right, Clara said quietly. I chose myself. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And I'd do it again. Because if I'd stayed here, I'd be dead inside. Maybe actually dead. She looked at her sister. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean I don't want to help now. How? Celeste asked. How can you help? Father's selling the ranch. We have nowhere to go. And I have a dowry that makes me a target for every horrible man looking for money. Come with me. Both Celeste and Marcus stared at Clara. What? Celeste whispered. Come to the Blackwood Ranch. Work there. Live there. Get away from him. Clara gestured at their father. You don't have to marry some stranger for money. You can choose something else. She's not going anywhere with you, Marcus said. She's staying with me until she finds a proper husband. She's 17, not property, Clara snapped. She can make her own choices. And I choose her staying here, Marcus said. End of discussion. Actually, Celeste said quietly, it's not your choice. Everyone looked at her. Celeste straightened her shoulders. I'm the one with the dowry, the one the buyers are accommodating in the sale, which means legally I have some say in where I go. She looked at her father. You taught me that, when you were trying to marry me off to pay your debts. Marcus's face went slack with shock. I'm going with Clara, Celeste continued, her voice shaking but firm. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if I can do ranch work or if I'll fit there, but I know I can't stay here anymore. Celeste, Marcus's voice broke. You're all I have left. Then you should have treated me better. The words were quiet, devastating. Celeste walked past her father, past Clara, toward the house. Give me an hour to pack. She disappeared inside. Marcus stood on the porch, suddenly looking ancient, broken. This is your fault, he said to Clara. You poisoned her against me. No, you did that yourself. Clara felt no triumph in saying it, just sadness. You could have been different, could have been the father we needed instead of the burden we carried, but you chose alcohol and gambling and blame. You chose to destroy yourself. I lost everything. You lost what Mother built. You never had anything of your own. Clara turned to leave, then stopped. I hope you find peace. I really do. But I'm done carrying your failures. She walked to the barn to wait for Celeste. An hour later, Celeste emerged with a single bag. She didn't look back at the house, didn't say goodbye to their father. She just climbed onto Clara's horse, wrapped her arms around her sister's waist, and said, Let's go. They rode away as the sun set behind the dying ranch. Behind them, Marcus Vale stood alone on his porch, watching his daughters disappear. He didn't call after them. The ride back to Blackwood Ranch was silent for the first hour. Then Celeste said quietly, I'm scared. Me too. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong like you? Clara nearly laughed. I'm not strong. I'm stubborn. There's a difference. You brought down the Sterling Empire. I had help, a lot of help, and I spent half the time terrified I'd fail. Clara glanced back at her sister. Strength isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. Is that what you tell yourself? Every single day. Celeste was quiet again. Then, the Blackwoods. Are they good people? They're complicated people, Clara said honestly. Victor is ruthless and calculating, but he's also fair in his own twisted way. Riker is kind but damaged. The ranch hands are a mix, some good, some awful, most just trying to survive. She paused. It's not perfect, but it's a chance to be something other than Father's disappointment. Do you love him? Riker? Yes. Does he love you? Clara considered the question. I think so, but it's complicated. His world is different from mine, from ours. There are expectations, rules, and I don't fit the mold of what someone like him is supposed to want. But he wants you anyway. He says he does. Do you believe him? Clara thought about the way Riker looked at her, the way he'd kissed her in front of 200 witnesses, the way he'd chosen her over Victoria Sterling's perfect society beauty. Yeah, Clara said. I believe him. They arrived at Blackwood Ranch after midnight. Ruth met them at the door, took one look at Celeste's exhausted face, and immediately went into mother mode. You look half-starved. Come on, let's get food in you. While Ruth fed Celeste in the kitchen, Clara found Riker in his office. still working despite the late hour. She came, he said, looking up. She came. And your father? Let her go. Eventually. Clara collapsed into a chair. He's alone now, broke, drunk, and alone. Do you feel guilty? Yes, and relieved, and sad, and angry. She rubbed her face. I feel everything, and nothing. Is that normal? Riker came around the desk, pulled her to her feet, and wrapped her in his arms. Clara let herself lean into him, let herself be held, let herself stop being strong for just a moment. What do I do with her? Clara asked into his shoulder. She's 17. She's been sheltered her whole life. She doesn't know cattle, or hard work, or how to survive in this world. We teach her, Riker said simply. Same way we taught you. I already knew how to work. You knew how to survive abuse disguised as work. That's different. He pulled back to look at her. We'll figure it out, together. The next morning, Victor summoned both sisters to his study. Celeste looked terrified. Clara didn't blame her. So, Victor said, studying Celeste like a horse he was considering purchasing. You're the beautiful sister. Celeste flinched. Father, Riker warned. What? It's true. Look at her. Delicate features, proper posture, actually knows how to dress. Victor's gaze shifted to Clara. While this one looks like she wrestled cattle before breakfast. I did wrestle cattle before breakfast, Clara said. It's called working. Victor's mouth twitched. Might have been a smile. Hard to tell. Miss Celeste, Victor said, your sister vouches for you. That counts for something. But I don't run a charity. If you're going to live here, you work. Understood? What kind of work? Celeste asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That depends. What can you do? I can play piano, speak French. I know etiquette and... Useless, Victor interrupted. I have 3 pianos gathering dust and no one to impress with French. What else? Celeste's face crumpled. I don't know. I wasn't trained for it. She's good with numbers, Clara interjected. An organization. She kept all of Mother's household accounts before Father fired the bookkeeper and did it himself. Which is why everything fell apart. Victor's interest sharpened. Numbers? I can do basic accounting, Celeste said quietly. Addition, subtraction, budgets. Mother taught me before she died. Can you spot discrepancies? Identify theft? Celeste glanced at Clara, confused. Can you tell when numbers don't add up? Clara translated. When someone's stealing by making the books look right when they're wrong? Oh, yes. I caught our cook stealing grocery money twice. Father didn't believe me, but I was right both times. Victor and Riker exchanged looks. We just fired our main bookkeeper, Victor said. Thomas was stealing and covering his tracks. We need someone to go through every account from the past 5 years and identify where else we've been losing money. Think you can handle that? I can try. Not good enough. Can you do it or not? Celeste lifted her chin slightly. Yes, I can do it. Good. You start tomorrow. Ruth will show you the office. You'll work normal hours, none of your sister's insane pre-dawn nonsense, and you'll report directly to me every week with what you find. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Don't thank me. If you fail, you're gone. If you succeed, you'll have earned your place. Victor waved them away. Now get out. I have actual work to do. In the hallway, Celeste grabbed Clara's arm. Did that just happen? You just got hired. But I don't know if I can really do this. What if I mess up? What if... Then you'll learn, Clara said. Same as the rest of us. The first week was brutal for Celeste. She wasn't used to working full days, wasn't used to the pressure of Victor's expectations, wasn't used to being surrounded by people who judged her on results instead of appearance. Clara found her crying in the accounts office on day 3. I can't do this, Celeste said. The numbers are too complicated. There are too many discrepancies. Every time I fix one thing, I find 3 more problems. So fix them one at a time. But Victor wants a full report by Friday. Then you give him a partial report and tell him you need more time. He's ruthless, not unreasonable. Clara sat down beside her sister. You're going to fail sometimes. That's part of learning. The question is whether you quit or keep going. Celeste wiped her eyes. How do you do it? Work this hard every day without breaking. Who says I don't break? Clara showed her sister her hands, calloused, scarred, still healing from yesterday's fence work. I break all the time. I just break in private and then get up and try again. That sounds exhausting. It is, Clara smiled slightly. But it's better than the alternative. By Friday, Celeste had a partial report. She presented it to Victor with shaking hands. Victor read it in silence. Then, you found the supply discrepancies. Yes, sir. Someone's been ordering twice what we need and selling the excess. I can't prove who yet, but the pattern suggests… Frank, Victor said. My equipment manager. He's been skimming for at least 3 years based on these numbers. I think longer. If you look at the patterns from 5 years ago, you went back 5 years? You said to review all accounts. I assumed you meant thoroughly. Victor actually smiled. You assumed correctly. Good work, Miss Celeste. Continue your investigation. I want names, amounts, and evidence for every theft you find. After she left, Victor turned to Riker. She's better at this than Thomas ever was. She's motivated, Riker said. Unlike Thomas, she actually cares about getting it right. She's also terrified of me. Everyone's terrified of you, Father. It's your brand. Victor laughed. Fair point. While Celeste worked on accounts, Clara threw herself into ranch operations with renewed intensity. Partly because there was always work to do. Partly because staying busy kept her from thinking about the letters that kept arriving. Threats from sterling sympathizers. Lawsuits that would probably go nowhere but still required lawyers. Reporters who wouldn't stop asking for interviews. And one letter that made her blood run cold. It arrived without a return address. Just her name on the envelope in handwriting she didn't recognize. Inside, a single sentence. You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. It wasn't signed. Clara showed it to Riker immediately. It's probably Victoria, he said, studying the letter, or one of her family members. Empty threat to scare you. Or it's a real threat from someone planning something, Clara countered. I'll increase security, add extra patrols, make sure… Don't. Clara took the letter back. If we treat every threat like it's real, we'll spend our whole lives jumping at shadows. We stay alert. We stay smart. But we don't let fear control us. Riker looked at her for a long moment. You're braver than I am. I'm not brave, I'm just tired of being scared. 3 days later, the threat proved real. Clara was working in the north pasture when she heard the gunshot. It came from the direction of the main house, sharp and unmistakable. Clara spurred her horse into a run, her heart pounding. She arrived to chaos. Ranch hands scrambling, someone shouting about the office, smoke pouring from a broken window. Clara dismounted at a run. What happened? Someone threw a firebomb through Mr. Victor's window, Cole said. He's inside. Clara didn't wait for the rest. She grabbed a bucket of water from the trough and ran into the house. The office was full of smoke. Victor was on the floor coughing, trying to reach the door. Flames licked up the curtains, spreading fast. Clara threw the water on the nearest flames, barely making a dent. She grabbed Victor's arm, hauled him to his feet. Can you walk? Do I look like I can walk? Victor coughed. Then lean on me. Together they staggered out of the office, down the hall, into the fresh air. Victor collapsed on the porch steps, coughing violently. Ruth appeared with water. Riker arrived moments later, his face white with panic. What the hell happened? Riker demanded. Someone threw a bomb through the window, Victor managed between coughs. Didn't see who, just heard breaking glass and then fire. Did anyone see anything? Riker shouted at the gathered ranch hands. I saw a rider, one of the younger hands said, heading east toward the ridge. Couldn't see their face, but they were moving fast. Get horses, Riker ordered. We're going after them. No, Victor said. He stood up slowly, Ruth supporting him. They're long gone by now, and charging off on some revenge chase is exactly what they want. We stay here, we secure the property, and we figure out who's trying to kill me. Clara's mind was already working. The letter I got, the timing, this isn't random. You think it's connected. Someone told me they'd take everything from me. You're one of the most important things in my life now. Clara looked at Victor. They're targeting you to hurt me. Well, that's just insulting, Victor said. I should be important enough to target on my own merit. Despite everything, Clara almost laughed. Whoever did this is escalating, Riker said. First threats, now attempted murder. They're not going to stop. Then we need to find them before they try again, Clara said. The investigation took 2 weeks. Clara coordinated with local law enforcement, interviewed witnesses, pieced together evidence. The firebomb had been crude but effective, designed to cause damage and send a message, not necessarily to kill. The threat was the point, not the execution, which meant someone was trying to scare them, not destroy them. It's psychological warfare, Claire explained to Riker one night. Someone wants us afraid, paranoid, jumping at shadows. It's working. I haven't slept in 3 days. Then we flip it. We refuse to be scared. We act like nothing happened and draw them out. That's insane. It's strategic. If they think we're weak, they'll get bold, make mistakes, show themselves. Riker studied her. When did you become a tactician? When I had to survive your father's world. Clara smiled slightly. I'm learning. The plan worked faster than expected. 2 days after they resumed normal operations, one of the ranch hands was caught trying to sabotage the water supply. Under questioning, he admitted to being paid by a blonde woman from town. Victoria Sterling was arrested the next morning. She denied everything, of course, claimed the ranch hand was lying, that she had alibis for everything, that the Blackwoods were framing her for revenge. But her bank records showed payments to the ranch hand. Her handwriting matched the threatening letter, and 3 witnesses placed her near the ranch the day of the firebomb. The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria was charged with attempted murder, arson, and conspiracy. Her bail was set impossibly high. And the Sterling family, already devastated by her father's arrest, couldn't afford to save her. Clara should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt empty. She threw away her entire life for revenge, Clara said to Riker the night Victoria was transferred to territorial prison. All that wealth, all that privilege, and she destroyed it all because she couldn't handle losing. Some people can't accept defeat, Riker said. They'd rather burn everything down than admit they lost. Is that what we are? Winners? We're survivors. There's a difference. Clara leaned against him. I'm tired of surviving. I want to actually live. What does that look like? Good question. Clara had been in survival mode for so long she barely remembered what actual living felt like. I don't know, she admitted, but I want to find out. The next morning, everything changed again. Clara was reviewing accounts with Celeste when Ruth burst into the office, her face pale. It's your father, Ruth said. There's been an accident. Clara's blood went cold. What kind of accident? He was drunk. Fell down the stairs. Someone found him this morning. Ruth's voice was gentle. He's alive, but barely. The doctor says if you want to see him, you should go now. The ride to town took forever and no time at all. Clara and Celeste arrived at the boarding house where their father had been staying since selling the ranch. The landlady met them at the door, her expression grim. He's upstairs. Room 3. Doctor's with him now. They climbed the narrow stairs in silence. Their father looked like a stranger, pale, broken, bruised beyond recognition. The doctor was packing his bag, his movements final. How long does he have? Clara asked quietly. Hours. Maybe less. His injuries are severe. Even if he survives the fall, the alcohol damage. The doctor shook his head. I'm sorry. There's nothing more I can do. He left them alone with their dying father. Marcus Vale's eyes flickered open, saw his daughters. Something like recognition crossed his face. Clara, he rasped. Celeste. We're here, Father, Celeste said, taking his hand. I'm sorry. The words were barely audible. I'm so sorry for everything. I was a terrible father, a terrible man. Yes, Clara said. You were. Celeste gasped. Clara said, no, he's dying. The least we can do is be honest. Clara looked at her father. You were cruel. You were drunk. You destroyed everything Mother built and blamed us for your failures. You made me feel worthless, and you used Celeste like currency. I know. Tears leaked from Marcus's eyes. I know. I wish I could take it back, be different, be the father you deserved. But you can't, Clara said. So all you can do is die knowing you wasted your life and hurt the people who loved you. Clara! Celeste was crying now, but their father was nodding. You're right. You're right. I wasted everything. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. But you didn't? You're strong, both of you, stronger than I ever was. We had to be, Clara said, because you weren't. They sat with him for another hour. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes lucid, sometimes rambling. He apologized again and again, told stories about their mother, cried for the man he should have been. And then, as the afternoon sun slanted through the dirty window, he stopped breathing. Clara felt nothing. No relief. No grief. Just emptiness. Celeste sobbed. Clara held her sister and felt nothing. Their father was dead. The man who'd shaped their entire lives, who'd hurt them and failed them and made them who they were. Dead. And Clara couldn't decide if she was supposed to mourn or celebrate or just move on. The funeral was small. A handful of people from town who'd known Marcus before the drinking got bad. A minister who said kind things that weren't true. Clara and Celeste standing by the grave, not crying, not speaking. Riker stood beside Clara, his presence steady and grounding. Victor had stayed home. I don't attend funerals for men who wasted their lives, he'd said. But Ruth came, and several of the ranch hands. When it was over, when the dirt had been thrown and the prayers had been said, Celeste turned to Clara. Do you think he's at peace now? She asked. Clara looked at the fresh grave. I think he's dead. That's as close to peace as he's going to get. That's a terrible thing to say. It's an honest thing to say. Clara took her sister's hand. I'm not going to pretend he was a good man just because he's dead. He was who he was, and we are who we are because of it. That's the truth. Celeste was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm glad he apologized, even if it doesn't change anything. Yeah, me too. They walked back to the carriage together. Behind them, Marcus Vale's grave settled into the Montana earth. Another failure buried. Another chapter closed. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her father's last words, about strength and weakness, about the choices that defined them. Around midnight, she gave up and went to find Riker. He was in his study, reviewing contracts. Looked up when she entered. Can't sleep? He asked. Can't stop thinking. Clara sat down. My father wasted his life, just threw it away on alcohol and gambling and self-pity. And I keep wondering if I'm doing the same thing. You're not. How do you know? Maybe I'm just trading one prison for another. The Vale Ranch for the Blackwood Ranch. My father's control for your father's empire. Maybe I'm not actually free at all. Riker set down his papers. Is that what you think? I don't know what I think anymore. Clara rubbed her face. I destroyed the Sterling Empire, saved your father's life, brought my sister here, and now my father's dead and I feel nothing. What does that make me? Human, Riker said quietly. It makes you human. Or broken. Same thing sometimes. He came around the desk. Clara, you're allowed to feel however you feel. You're allowed to grieve or not grieve, to be relieved or guilty, or nothing at all. There's no right way to process this. I just want to stop surviving and start living, Clara said. I want to know what that feels like. Then let's find out. Clara looked at him. How? Riker pulled her to her feet. Marry me. The world stopped. What? Marry me, Riker repeated. Not because of society expectations or business arrangements or family pressure, but because I love you, because you're the strongest, bravest, most infuriating person I've ever met. Because when I think about my future, you're the only person I want in it. Clara's heart was pounding. Riker. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know half of Montana society will lose their minds. But I don't care. I want you. Not as an employee or a project or a scandal. As my wife, my partner, my equal. Tears were streaming down Clara's face now. You're sure? Because once we do this, there's no going back. I'll never be the perfect society wife. I'll never fit their mold. I don't want their mold. I want you. Clara kissed him, desperate and fierce and sure. When they broke apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Riker pulled her close. Fair warning. My father's going to make this difficult. Your father makes everything difficult. And society will talk. Society's already talking. And Victoria will probably try to kill us from prison. She can try, Riker laughed. We're going to be a disaster. The best kind of disaster, Clara agreed. They held each other in the quiet of Riker's study while the Montana night settled around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Victor's reactions, society's judgment, the endless work of building a life together. But tonight, Clara Vale, the fat girl from the dying ranch, the scandal of Montana, the woman who'd survived everything life threw at her, was exactly where she wanted to be. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. Victor's reaction to the engagement was worse than Clara expected. Absolutely not, he said the next morning when Riker announced their plans. They were in his study, the smell of smoke still lingering from the firebomb attack. I forbid it. You can't forbid it, Riker said calmly. I'm 28 years old. I don't need your permission. You need my blessing if you want to keep running this ranch, if you want access to the Blackwood fortune, if you want... I don't care about any of that. Victor slammed his hand on the desk. Don't be a fool. You'll marry someone appropriate. Someone from a respected family. Someone who can help this empire, not drag it down. Clara saved this empire, Riker shot back. She exposed the Sterlings. She stopped a range war. She's done more for Blackwood interests in 4 months than Victoria Sterling did in 2 years of engagement. She's a scandal. Every newspaper in Montana has written about her. Half the territory thinks she's a gold digger who seduced you for money. The other half thinks she's a criminal who fabricated evidence. Victor turned to Clara, who'd been standing silently by the door. No offense, Miss Vale, but you're a liability. None taken, Clara said. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. You're right. I am a scandal. I am a liability. And I'll never fit into high society the way you want. But I love your son, and he loves me. And you taught me that in this world you take what you want and don't apologize for it. Victor's eyes narrowed. Don't use my words against me. Why not? They're true. Clara stepped forward. You built an empire by being ruthless and taking risks, by choosing power over popularity. Well, Riker's choosing me. That's his power move. And you can either accept it or lose your son. The room went dead silent. Then Victor laughed. Actually laughed, loud and genuine. She's got steel in her spine, I'll give her that. He shook his head. Fine, marry her. But don't come crying to me when society tears you both apart. We won't, Riker said. And don't expect a fancy wedding. I'm not wasting money on a celebration half the territory will boycott. We don't want fancy, Clara said. We just want real. Victor studied them both for a long moment. Then he poured 3 glasses of whiskey and handed them out. To poor decisions and stubborn children, he said, raising his glass. May you both survive the consequences. They drank. It tasted like victory and disaster mixed together. Planning a wedding while running a ranch turned out to be harder than fighting the Sterling Empire. Clara wanted something small and simple. Riker agreed. But Victor, despite his protests about not wasting money, seemed determined to make it a statement. If we're doing this, we're doing it right, he announced 3 days after accepting their engagement. We'll have the ceremony here. Autumn, when the trees turn. Invite everyone who matters. Show Montana that the Blackwoods don't hide from scandal. We own it. That's the opposite of small and simple, Clara protested. Small and simple looks like we're ashamed, like we're sneaking around. Victor's logic was iron. You want people to accept this marriage? Make them watch it happen. Make it so public, so confident, they have no choice but to respect it. He had a point. Clara hated that he had a point. Fine, she said, but I'm not wearing some ridiculous dress that costs more than a horse. You'll wear whatever makes you look like someone worth marrying into this family. I am worth marrying into this family. Then dress like it. They argued for 20 minutes before Riker intervened. How about this, he said. Clara picks the dress. Victor plans the guest list. And I stay out of both discussions before someone gets murdered. It was the best compromise they'd get. The dress hunt was its own nightmare. Ruth took Clara to 3 different shops in town. Each one had the same reaction when Clara walked in. Poorly hidden surprise, quick assessments, and dresses that might work if we take them in here and let them out there. I hate this, Clara muttered after the second shop. You're doing fine, Ruth said. I look ridiculous. These dresses aren't made for bodies like mine. Then we'll find someone who makes dresses for your body. Ruth's tone was matter of fact. Or we'll have one made, money's not an issue. That's not the point. The point is I shouldn't have to spend a fortune just to look acceptable. You don't look acceptable, Ruth said. You look beautiful. The dresses are the problem, not you. Clara wanted to believe that, but every mirror in every shop told her something different. They finally found a dressmaker in Helena, an older woman named Mrs. Chen, who took one look at Clara and said, "Finally, someone with actual curves to work with. I'm tired of making dresses for women who look like they've never eaten." She measured Clara without judgment, asked what she wanted, actually listened when Clara said she needed to be able to move, breathe, and not feel like a fraud. "I can do that," Mrs. Chen said. "But it'll take 6 weeks. Rush jobs cost extra." "Money's not a problem," Ruth said. "Good. Then get out of my shop and let me work." 6 weeks gave Clara time to worry about everything else, like Celeste, who was throwing herself into accounting work with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. "You need to slow down," Clara told her sister one evening, finding her still in the office at 10 at night. "I'm almost done with the 1871 ledgers, just 3 more months to review. Celeste, you've been working 14-hour days for 3 weeks. You're going to burn out." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You barely eat. You don't sleep. You're using work to avoid dealing with Father's death." Celeste's hand stilled on the ledger. "Maybe I am. So what? So it's not healthy. You need to grieve. You need to process." "I don't want to process." Celeste slammed the ledger shut. "I don't want to think about him, or miss him, or feel guilty that I'm relieved he's dead. I just want to work. I want to be useful. I want to prove I deserve to be here." "You don't have to prove anything." "Yes, I do. You earned your place. You saved the ranch, exposed criminals, survived everything. I'm just the pretty sister who happened to be good with numbers. I haven't earned anything." Clara sat down across from her. "Celeste, you left everything you knew. You stood up to Father. You're building a new life from nothing. That's not just anything. That's brave." "I'm not brave. I'm terrified every single day." "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway." Celeste's eyes filled with tears. "I miss him. I hate that I miss him. He was terrible to us, and I should be glad he's gone, but I miss him anyway. That's normal. He was our father. Even terrible fathers leave holes when they die." "Do you miss him?" Clara considered lying, decided on truth. "Sometimes. Not the man he was, the man I wanted him to be. I miss having a father. I just wish the father I had was different." They sat in silence for a moment. "Your wedding's in 5 weeks," Celeste said finally. "I know." "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "But you're doing it anyway." "Yeah, I'm doing it anyway." Celeste smiled slightly. "Then I guess we're both braver than we think." The guest list became a battlefield of its own. Victor wanted to invite everyone, every ranch owner, every politician, every business leader in Montana. Show them we're not afraid of their judgment. Clara wanted to invite people who actually mattered to them. "I don't care about impressing strangers." They compromised on a middle ground that satisfied no one and annoyed everyone. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Clara received a letter that changed everything. It was from Celeste's old piano teacher, Mrs. Morrison. Short and to the point. "I thought you should know. There's a man asking questions about your sister. Says he's interested in courting her. He's older, maybe 50, and wealthy. But something about him feels wrong. Thought you'd want to know before he makes contact." Clara's blood ran cold. She found Riker immediately, showed him the letter. "Do you know who it is?" he asked. "No, but I know the type. Rich man looking for a young, vulnerable girl he can control." Clara's hands clenched. "Celeste has a dowry. She's beautiful. She's alone. She's exactly the kind of target these men look for." "Then we make sure he can't get to her." "How?" "We can't lock her up. We can't control who approaches her." Riker was quiet for a moment. Then, "We can make sure she's not vulnerable, not alone. We give her power." "What kind of power?" "The Blackwood name. The protection that comes with it." He looked at Clara. "What if we made her part of the family? Officially?" Clara understood immediately. Adoption. You want Victor to adopt her. Not Victor, us. After we're married, we legally adopt Celeste as our ward. She becomes a Blackwood. Anyone who wants to court her has to go through us first. It was brilliant and crazy in equal measure. Victor will never agree to it, Clara said. Then we don't ask for permission. We just do it. They presented the idea to Celeste that night. She stared at them like they'd lost their minds. You want to adopt me? I'm 17, not a child. You're 17 and vulnerable, Clara said, and there's a man out there asking about you, someone who sees your dowry and your situation and thinks you're easy prey. Celeste's face went pale. What man? Clara showed her the letter. I don't understand. Why would someone... Because you're beautiful and alone and you have money, Riker said bluntly. That makes you a target. But if you're legally part of the Blackwood family, you're protected. Anyone who wants to court you has to prove themselves to us first. You're trying to control my life. We're trying to protect it, Clara corrected. There's a difference. You can still make your own choices, but you'll make them from a position of power instead of vulnerability. Celeste was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if I don't want to be a Blackwood? What if I want to stand on my own? Then you tell us no, Riker said, and we'll find another way to keep you safe. But this is the strongest protection we can offer. And what does Victor say about this? We haven't told him yet, Clara admitted. So you're asking me to agree to something that might not even be possible. We're asking you to trust us, to let us fight for you the way no one ever fought for us. Celeste looked between them. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay. If Victor agrees, I agree. Victor's reaction was predictable. Have you lost your minds? He demanded when they told him. Adopting a 17-year-old girl weeks before your wedding? The paperwork alone would be a nightmare. So cut through the red tape, Riker said. You've done it before for business deals. This isn't a business deal. Yes, it is, Clara said. Celeste is valuable. She's smart, skilled, and she's making this ranch money by finding all the theft you didn't know about. Protecting her is good business. Victor glared at her. You're manipulating me. I learned from the best. He laughed despite himself. Fine, I'll make the calls. But this better not blow up in my face. The adoption papers were filed 2 weeks before the wedding. It cost a small fortune in legal fees and favors called in. But within 10 days, Celeste Vale became Celeste Blackwood, legal ward of Riker and Clara. The change in her was immediate. She stood straighter, spoke with more confidence. When the man from Mrs. Morrison's letter finally showed up at the ranch, a wealthy landowner named Harrison Mills, Celeste met him in Victor's study with Riker and Clara flanking her. Mr. Mills, she said coolly, I understand you've been asking about me. Mills was exactly what Clara expected. 50s, well-dressed, predatory eyes that assessed Celeste like merchandise. Miss Vale, or should I say Miss Blackwood now. I heard about your change in circumstances. His smile was oily. I wanted to introduce myself, express my interest in getting to know you better. Why? Celeste asked bluntly. Excuse me? Why are you interested in me? We've never met. You didn't know me when I was Celeste Vale, so what changed now that I'm Celeste Blackwood? Mills's smile faltered. Well, I heard about your intelligence, your beauty, your accomplishments. You heard about my dowry and my vulnerability, Celeste interrupted. You thought you could court a poor orphaned girl and control her money. But I'm not poor anymore. I'm not vulnerable. And I'm not interested. Now wait just a minute. The lady said no, Riker said quietly. I suggest you leave. Mills's face went red. You can't just dismiss me. I'm a respected businessman. I have connections. And I have lawyers, Clara said, along with documentation of every young woman you've courted in the past 5 years. Funny how they're all around Celeste's age, all recently inherited money, and all ended up married to you within months. Mills went white. That's slander. It's public record, Clara corrected. Would you like me to make it more public? I still have friends at the territorial newspapers. He left without another word. After he was gone, Celeste let out a shaky breath. That was terrifying. You were perfect, Clara said. I wanted to cry, or throw up, or both. But you didn't. You stood your ground. Riker smiled. Welcome to being a Blackwood. It's terrifying and empowering in equal measure. Celeste laughed. Actually laughed. I think I'm starting to like this family. The dress arrived a week before the wedding. Mrs. Chen delivered it personally, refused to let Clara try it on until the day of the ceremony. Some things should be surprises, she said. Trust me, it's perfect. Clara didn't trust easily, but something in Mrs. Chen's confidence made her want to believe. The days leading up to the wedding blurred together. Last-minute preparations, guest confirmations, Victor arguing with the caterers about wine selections, Ruth coordinating staff, Celeste managing seating arrangements with military precision, and Clara, somehow in the center of it all, wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Cold feet? Riker asked 2 nights before the wedding, finding her in the stables at midnight. Frozen feet. Hypothermic feet. Clara leaned against the stall door and, what if we're wrong? What if society really does tear us apart? What if, then we'll survive it together? Riker stood beside her. Clara, I'm not going to lie and say this will be easy. It won't be. People will judge you, talk about you, try to make you feel small. Not helping. But here's what they won't be able to do. They won't be able to break you because you've survived worse. You've survived your father, the Vale Ranch, the Sterling conspiracy, all of it. You're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. I feel terrified. Good. Means you're human. He took her hand. 2 more days, then you're stuck with me forever. Forever's a long time. Not long enough. Clara kissed him. Soft and sweet and full of hope she was afraid to fully feel. I love you, she said. I love you too. The wedding day arrived with perfect autumn weather. The trees blazed gold and red against a crystalline blue sky. The temperature was just cool enough to be comfortable. Even the notoriously unpredictable Montana wind behaved itself. Clara woke at dawn, her stomach in knots. Ruth appeared with breakfast Clara couldn't eat. Celeste helped with her hair, chattering nervously. And then Mrs. Chen arrived with the dress. No peeking until you're ready to put it on, she commanded. When Clara finally saw it, she stopped breathing. The dress was beautiful, not in the delicate, restrictive way of society gowns, but in a way that fit who Clara actually was. Deep blue fabric that brought out her eyes. A cut that flattered her curves instead of fighting them. Sleeves she could move in. A skirt that wouldn't trap her. It was a dress made for a woman who worked, who fought, who lived. It's perfect, Clara whispered. I know, Mrs. Chen said smugly. Now let's get you into it before you start crying and ruin your face. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. By 2:30, over 200 guests had arrived. Every important family in Montana, politicians, business leaders, ranch owners, all gathered to watch the scandal marry into the Blackwood Empire. Clara could hear the murmurs from her room, feel the weight of their judgment even through the walls. They're vultures, Celeste said, peeking out the window. Half of them are hoping you'll fail. Then we'll disappoint them, Clara said. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Ruth appeared in the doorway. It's time. The walk from the house to the ceremony site felt like miles. Clara could see them all. The guests arranged in perfect rows, watching, judging, waiting for her to stumble. The decorations Victor had insisted on, the autumn trees creating a canopy of fire overhead. And at the front, waiting beside the minister, Riker. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Clara's nervousness evaporated. She walked down the aisle, not gliding, not floating, just walking like herself, and took Riker's hand. The minister began the ceremony. Clara heard maybe half the words. The rest was just noise beneath the pounding of her heart. Then came the vows. Riker Blackwood, the minister intoned, do you take this woman— Wait, Riker interrupted. The crowd gasped. Clara's heart stopped. Riker turned to face her fully. I want to say something first, if that's okay. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. Everyone here knows our story, Riker said, loud enough for the whole crowd to hear. They know Clara came from nothing, worked her way into this family, exposed criminals, survived attacks. They know she's not society, not polished, not what anyone expected. Clara could feel the judgment radiating from the audience. And every single one of those things is why I love her, Riker continued. Because she's real in a world of fake, strong when everyone else is weak, brave when courage costs everything. She's fought for every inch of ground she's standing on, and I am honored that she's choosing to stand beside me. His voice broke slightly. So yes, I take this woman, gladly, gratefully, forever. Clara was crying now, didn't even try to hide it. When the minister asked her the same question, she didn't hesitate. I take him, absolutely, completely, for however long we've got. The minister pronounced them married. Riker kissed her like they were the only two people in Montana. The crowd erupted in applause, some genuine, some polite, some probably horrified. Clara didn't care about any of them. She was Clara Blackwood now, married to the man who'd seen her when everyone else looked away. Part of a family that had chosen her instead of tolerating her. The reception was elaborate. Victor had spared no expense, tables laden with food, champagne flowing freely, music from an orchestra brought in from Helena. It was designed to show Montana that the Blackwoods didn't apologize for their choices. Clara moved through it in a daze, accepting congratulations from people who probably hated her, dancing with Riker while cameras flashed, watching Celeste charm politicians with the ease of someone born to it. Around 9 o'clock, an older woman approached Clara. Eleanor Hartford, wife of the territorial governor. Mrs. Blackwood, she said, and Clara still wasn't used to that name. I wanted to tell you something. If it's about my dress being inappropriate, it's about your courage. Eleanor's smile was genuine. Do you know how many women in this territory are trapped in marriages they hate? Trapped in lives they never chose? You're showing them there's another way, that they can choose themselves. Clara felt her throat tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep being who you are. Keep showing them it's possible. She walked away, leaving Clara standing there with tears in her eyes again. Later, much later, after most guests had left and only family remained, Victor pulled Clara aside. You survived it, he said. Barely. Still counts. He handed her a glass of whiskey. I was wrong about you. When Riker first brought you here, I thought you were weak, a project, someone who'd break under pressure. And now? Now I think you might be the strongest person in this family. Stronger than me. Stronger than Riker. Maybe even stronger than you realize yet. He raised his glass. Welcome to the Blackwood Empire, Clara. Try not to burn it down. No promises, Victor laughed. Good answer. The night ended with Clara and Riker alone on the terrace, watching the last guests depart. We did it, Riker said. We survived it. Same thing. Clara leaned against him. What happens now? Now we live. We work. We build something together. He kissed the top of her head. Now we get to find out what comes after surviving. Clara thought about that, about all the years she'd spent just trying to make it through each day, about her father's wasted life and her mother's lost dreams and all the ways she'd been told she wasn't enough. And now here she was, married, part of Montana's most powerful family, standing beside a man who loved her exactly as she was. It felt impossible, fragile, like it might shatter if she breathed wrong, but it was all so real. I'm scared, Clara admitted quietly, of losing this, of failing, of not being good enough for all of it. Then we'll be scared together, Riker said, and we'll fail together, and we'll get up and try again together. That simple? That complicated. He pulled her closer. But worth it. You're worth it. Clara let herself believe him. Let herself imagine a future that wasn't just about surviving, a future where she could actually live, build, become something more than the rejected daughter who fought her way to acceptance. The autumn stars wheeled overhead. The ranch settled into quiet. And Clara Blackwood, formerly Clara Vale, formerly the fat daughter nobody wanted, stood in the arms of her husband and allowed herself to hope. Tomorrow would bring new battles. Society would test her. Enemies would emerge. The work of building a life would be hard and messy and imperfect. But tonight, she had this. This moment. This man. This choice. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The honeymoon period lasted exactly 3 weeks. Then reality hit like a Montana blizzard. Fast, brutal, and impossible to ignore. The first crisis came from an unexpected direction. Not society gossip or business rivals, but from within the ranch itself. Clara was reviewing quarterly reports when she noticed something that made her stomach drop. The numbers from their cooperative agreements with smaller ranches, the ones they'd established after exposing the Sterlings, didn't add up. "Riker," she called, not looking up from the ledger. "When did we last audit the cooperative accounts?" "Last month. Why?" "Because someone's been skimming. A lot." She showed him the discrepancies. "See here? We're supposed to be sharing profits equally with the Morrison Ranch, but the payouts don't match the sales records." Riker leaned over her shoulder, his jaw tightening as he saw what she'd found. "That's almost $15,000 missing just from this one account. And there are 12 other ranches in the cooperative." Clara flipped through more pages. "If they're all being cheated the same way, we're looking at close to $200,000 in theft." They stared at each other. "Who has access to these accounts?" Clara asked. "Only senior management. Me, Father, the new bookkeeper we hired after Thomas." Riker stopped. David coordinates all the cooperative agreements." David Chen had been with the Blackwood Ranch for 15 years, trusted, reliable, the last person anyone would suspect. "We need to be sure before we accuse him," Clara said. "If we're wrong, then we destroy an innocent man's reputation." "I know." Riker ran his hand through his hair. "But if we're right and we wait, he could steal more, or worse, disappear with everything he's already taken." Clara thought about the other ranches, the families who'd trusted the Blackwood Cooperative, the ones who were counting on those profit shares to survive the winter. "We investigate quietly," she decided. "Tonight. Go through his office, his records, everything. Find proof before we move." They waited until midnight. The ranch was quiet, most workers asleep. Clara and Riker slipped into David's office like thieves, which technically they were. What they found was worse than expected. David hadn't just been skimming the cooperative accounts. He'd been running an entire shadow operation, falsifying contracts, creating fake vendors, rerouting payments to accounts he controlled. The theft went back years, carefully hidden in the complexity of the Blackwood Empire's finances. "He's been stealing since before I was born," Riker said, looking at records from the late 1860s. "How did no one catch this?" "Because he was careful, and because your father trusted him." Clara gathered the evidence. "We have enough here to send him to prison for decades. He has a family, a wife, 3 kids." "I know." They sat in the dark office, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and Clara felt the weight of what came next. "We don't have a choice," she said quietly. "If we let him go, if we protect him because of his family, then we're telling everyone that loyalty means nothing, that you can steal from the Blackwoods and walk away as long as you've been around long enough." "I know that. I just hate it." "Me too." They confronted David the next morning in Victor's study. All the evidence laid out, no room for denial. David didn't even try to lie. "How long have you known?" he asked, his voice hollow. "Since yesterday," Riker said. "How long have you been stealing?" 23 years. Since the year after Victor hired me." David looked at his hands. "Started small, just a few dollars here and there, but it was so easy. And I had debts, my wife's medical bills, the kids' education. It kept growing." "You stole from families who trusted us," Clara said. "Families who needed that money to survive." "I know. You stole from the cooperative, the thing we built to make ranching fair, to give smaller operations a chance." "I know." Victor, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. "Why? You had a good salary, benefits, security. Why risk all of it?" David laughed bitterly. "Because it was never enough. You have millions. Riker will inherit an empire, and I'll work until I die and leave my family nothing. I wanted more. I deserved more." "You deserved what you earned," Victor said coldly. "Nothing more." Easy to say when you inherited everything from your father, when you've never had to choose between your kids' medicine and next month's rent. The words hit harder than Clara expected, because she understood them, had lived them in a different way. But understanding didn't make theft acceptable. "You're fired," Victor said, "and I'm pressing charges. The territorial marshal will be here within the hour." David's face crumpled. "Please, please, I have a family. My wife is sick. My kids—" "Should have thought of that before you stole $200,000. Victor's voice was iron. "Get out of my sight." They arrested David that afternoon, His wife came to the ranch begging for mercy. His children cried. His oldest son, barely 16, swore revenge against the Blackwoods for destroying his father. Clara watched it all and felt sick. "This is what justice looks like?" she asked Riker that night. "Destroying families?" "David destroyed his own family. We're just holding him accountable. His kids didn't steal anything. They're innocent, and now they're homeless because their father made bad choices." Riker was quiet for a moment. Then, "What would you have us do? Let him go? Pretend it never happened?" "No, but maybe we don't have to destroy everyone around him too." Clara looked at her husband. "What if we helped his family, made sure they had somewhere to go, that the kids could still go to school?" "That's rewarding theft. That's separating the crime from the collateral damage." Clara stood up. "David deserves prison, but his wife and kids deserve a chance. We can give them that without excusing what he did." It took 3 days of arguing, but eventually Victor agreed to a compromise. The Chen family would be given enough money to relocate and start over. In exchange, they'd leave Montana and never contact the Blackwoods again. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. The scandal of David's arrest rippled through Montana like an earthquake. People started questioning the Blackwood Cooperative, wondering if the whole thing was a scam, if Clara and Riker's reforms were just window dressing over the same old corruption. "We need to be transparent," Clara told Victor during an emergency meeting. "Show everyone the books. Prove that the cooperative is real and fair." "Absolutely not," Victor said. "We don't owe anyone explanations. We owe them trust, and trust requires transparency. Opening our books makes us vulnerable, shows our competitors exactly how we operate. Keeping them closed makes us look guilty." Clara leaned forward. "You taught me that power requires strength, but strength doesn't mean hiding. Sometimes it means being so confident in what you've built that you can show it to everyone." Victor studied her. "You're using my logic against me again." "Because it works." He laughed despite himself. "Fine, open the books. But if this backfires, then I'll take the blame," Clara said. "This is my idea, my risk." They published full financial statements for the cooperative in every major newspaper in Montana, showed exactly how profits were calculated, how shares were distributed, how the system worked. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Half the territory praised the transparency. The other half picked apart every number, looking for hidden corruption that didn't exist. But slowly, grudgingly, people started to believe. The cooperative was real. The Blackwoods had actually changed how they did business. 3 smaller ranches applied to join within the month. "You were right," Victor admitted one evening. "The transparency worked." "Don't sound so surprised. I've been doing business for 40 years. In all that time, I've never seen honesty work better than deception." He poured whiskey. "You're teaching an old dog new tricks, Clara. I'm not sure whether to thank you or resent you." "Both is fine." He smiled, actually smiled. "You're good for this family, good for Riker, good for me, even if I won't admit it most days." It was the closest thing to affection Victor had ever shown her. Clara took it as the victory it was. But just as things stabilized, Celeste brought new complications. She'd been quiet for weeks, working obsessively on the accounts, barely socializing. Clara had written it off as normal adjustment, learning to be a Blackwood, processing their father's death. She was wrong. "I want to open a school," Celeste announced one morning at breakfast. Everyone stared at her. "A what?" Victor asked. "A school for girls who've been told they're not enough, who've been passed over, dismissed, treated like burdens." Celeste's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "Girls like us, Clara. Girls who need someone to tell them they're worth more than what men decide to pay for them." Clara's throat tightened. "That's a nice sentiment," Victor said carefully. "But running a school requires funding, staff, curriculum. I have my dowry. It's enough to start small. And I've been researching curriculum, talking to teachers, planning." Celeste pulled out a notebook filled with meticulous notes. "I can teach accounting, household management, basic law. We can hire teachers for other subjects. Start with maybe 10 students and grow from there." "Celeste," Riker said gently, "this is admirable. But are you sure you're ready? You just joined this family. You're still processing your father's death. I'm processing it by doing something meaningful, by making sure other girls don't end up like we did." trapped, powerless, dependent on men who don't deserve their trust. Celeste looked at Clara. You broke free by being strong enough to survive anything, but not everyone is that strong. Some of us need tools, education, options. Clara felt tears building. Celeste, this is incredible, but it's also dangerous. Society won't like it. Rich men won't like educated women who understand their worth. You'll make powerful enemies. Good. Let them be enemies. Celeste's voice was fierce. I spent 17 years being quiet and pretty and perfect, doing what Father wanted, becoming what men expected. I'm done with that. I want to build something that matters. Victor set down his coffee. If I give you seed money, double your dowry, will you let me have input on the business structure? Celeste's eyes went wide. You'd fund this? I'd invest in it. There's a difference. This could be profitable if done right. Educated women from good families paying for quality instruction. Plus it improves the Blackwood reputation, shows we care about more than just profits. He smiled slightly. And honestly, I like the idea of making rich idiots angry. It's good entertainment. Clara looked at her sister, saw determination and fear and hope all mixed together. I'll help, Clara said. However you need. Teaching, funding, connections, whatever. So will I, Riker added. Celeste started crying. Thank you all. I promise I won't let you down. You already haven't, Clara said. You're doing exactly what you should be doing, building something instead of just surviving. The school took 6 months to establish. They found a building in town, an old church that had been abandoned for years, hired 3 teachers, developed curriculum that mixed traditional subjects with practical skills like accounting, contract law, and property rights. The first class had 12 students, girls ranging from 14 to 20, all from families that had either written them off or were actively trying to marry them to the highest bidder. Clara watched the opening day from the back of the classroom, listening to Celeste give her welcome speech. You've been told you're not smart enough, Celeste said to the gathered girls, not valuable enough, that your only worth is in marriage and babies and keeping quiet. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. You are smart. You are valuable. And your worth is determined by you, not by anyone else's opinion. One girl raised her hand. But what if our families won't accept us after? What if they cut us off for being too educated? Then you'll have the skills to support yourself, Celeste said simply. That's the whole point. Education gives you choices, options, power, with or without your family's approval. Clara left before the tears could fall. Riker found her outside, leaning against the building, struggling to breathe through the emotion. You okay? He asked. That should have been me. 20 years ago, that school should have existed for me. Someone should have told me I was worth more than my father's opinions. You figured it out anyway. But I almost didn't. I almost spent my whole life invisible on that ranch, believing I was worthless because one drunk told me I was. Clara wiped her eyes. Celeste is saving lives in there. Actual lives. So did you. You saved yours. And mine. And hers. Riker pulled her close. That school exists because you showed her it was possible to choose yourself. She's building on your foundation. Clara let herself cry, for the girl she'd been, for all the years she'd wasted believing she wasn't enough, for the women who'd never get the chance to learn otherwise, but also for the hope, for the 12 girls in that classroom who'd leave with tools and knowledge and power, for the future Celeste was building. While Celeste's school grew, Clara focused on transforming the ranch cooperative into something unprecedented. She traveled to every partner ranch, met with the owners, listened to their concerns. Most were small operations barely surviving. They didn't need charity. They needed fair prices, reliable markets, and access to resources. Clara gave them all 3. She negotiated contracts that guaranteed minimum prices for their cattle, set up a central warehouse where smaller ranches could pool resources and save money, created a loan program that helped operations invest in better equipment without predatory interest rates. It wasn't charity, it was smart business. Stronger partners meant a stronger cooperative. Everyone benefited. But it also meant endless work. 16-hour days, constant travel, negotiations that left her exhausted. You're burning out, Riker said after she fell asleep at dinner for the 3rd time in a week. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running yourself into the ground. There's too much to do. Then delegate. Train others. You don't have to carry everything alone. Clara knew he was right, but letting go meant trusting others, and trust had never come easy. Still, she tried. She promoted Cole to assistant manager, gave him authority over day-to-day operations, trained 2 younger ranch hands to handle negotiations, let Riker take over the financial side while she focused on relationship building. It helped. Not completely, but enough. And slowly, the cooperative transformed from a desperate alliance into a genuine partnership. 23 ranches working together, sharing knowledge, resources, and risk. The Montana Ranchers Cooperative became the model for similar organizations across the territory. People stopped seeing it as a Blackwood charity project and started recognizing it as revolutionary, a way for small operations to compete with massive conglomerates. Clara became the public face of it, gave interviews, spoke at gatherings, represented the cooperative in negotiations with railroad companies and territorial officials. She hated the attention, but she understood its necessity. "You're becoming famous," Ruth told her one evening. "They're writing articles about you, calling you a visionary." "They called me a scandal 6 months ago." "Same people. They just changed their minds when you proved you weren't going away," Clara laughed. "So I just had to outlast their judgment. That's usually how it works." 2 years after the wedding, Victor's health started failing. It happened slowly at first. Fatigue he blamed on age. Shortness of breath he ignored. Then one morning he collapsed in his study and couldn't get up. The doctor's diagnosis was grim. Heart disease, advanced. He had maybe a year if he was lucky. Victor took the news like he took everything, with cold calculation. "I need to arrange succession," he told Riker and Clara. "Make sure the ranch survives after I'm gone." "You're not dying anytime soon," Riker said, but his voice shook. "I'm dying exactly on schedule. We just need to prepare for it." Victor looked at Clara. "I'm splitting the estate 3 ways. Riker gets the ranch operations, Celeste gets the commercial properties and investments, and you, Clara, get the cooperative and all associated contracts." Clara stared at him. "Me? You built it. You run it. It's yours." Victor's smile was tired. "Besides, you're the only one stubborn enough to keep it honest after I'm gone." "Father, this is too much." "It's exactly right. You've earned it. Now stop arguing and accept the gift." Clara felt tears building. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Running the cooperative means endless headaches and people constantly trying to cheat you. You'll hate it half the time." "Then I'll fit right in with this family." Victor laughed, then coughed. Hard enough that Riker had to help him to a chair. "Take care of my son," Victor said to Clara quietly. "He's softer than he thinks, kinder than I taught him to be. He'll need you to keep him honest." "I will." "And take care of yourself. Don't let this empire eat you alive the way it almost ate me." "I'll try." "Good enough." Victor Blackwood died 6 months later on a clear October morning with Riker and Clara beside him. His last words were, "Don't screw this up." Then he was gone. The funeral drew hundreds. Politicians, business leaders, rivals who'd hated him but respected his power. They came to pay respects to the man who'd built an empire through ruthlessness and strategy. But Clara mourned someone different. The man who'd grudgingly accepted her, who'd taught her that power required courage, who'd transformed from enemy to ally to something almost like family. "He was impossible," she told Riker at the graveside. "He was," Riker agreed, "and cruel, and manipulative, and completely unwilling to admit when he was wrong. All of that too. But he changed, at the end. He became better than he was." Riker squeezed her hand. "Because you showed him he could. You and Celeste. You both proved that strength doesn't require cruelty." They stood together as Victor Blackwood was laid to rest beside his wife. Another chapter ending. Another beginning waiting. The transition of power was smoother than expected. Riker took over ranch operations with confidence. Celeste expanded her school to 3 locations, and Clara grew the cooperative to include 47 ranches across Montana and into Wyoming. They made mistakes, had fights, struggled with the weight of responsibility, but they also thrived. 3 years after Victor's death, Clara stood in front of the Montana Territorial Assembly, presenting a proposal that would have been unthinkable when she first arrived at the Blackwood Ranch. "Gentlemen," she said, addressing a room full of politicians. "I'm here to propose the Montana Fair Trade Act, legislation that would protect small ranches from predatory contracts, ensure fair market prices, and provide legal recourse against corporate manipulation." The assembly erupted in arguments. Some supported it. Others called it socialist nonsense. A few accused Clara of trying to destroy free enterprise. She waited for them to quiet down. "I'm not trying to destroy anything," she said calmly. "I'm trying to build something sustainable. Right now, small ranches are failing at unprecedented rates. Not because they're poorly run, but because they can't compete with conglomerates that manipulate prices and monopolize markets. This legislation levels the field, makes competition actually fair. And why should we trust you?" one legislator demanded. "You're not even from Montana originally. You're just some ranch girl who married into money?" Clara smiled. "You're right. I am just a ranch girl. I spent my childhood fixing fences and hauling feed. I know exactly how hard ranching is, how thin the margins are, how one bad season can destroy everything." She leaned forward. "Which means I understand this better than any of you. And I'm telling you, if we don't protect small operations, there won't be any left. Just corporate monopolies controlling everything." The debate lasted 3 hours. The vote was close, but the Montana Fair Trade Act passed. Clara walked out of the assembly building to find Riker waiting with champagne. "You did it," he said. "We did it. All of us." They celebrated that night with the entire cooperative. 47 ranchers and their families gathered at the Blackwood Ranch, toasting to a future that was actually fair. Clara looked around at all these people, former strangers who'd become allies, then partners, then friends, and felt something she'd never quite felt before. Pride. Not in surviving, not in enduring, but in building, creating, making something better than what came before. 5 years after her wedding, Clara received a letter that changed everything one last time. It was from Mrs. Morrison, the piano teacher who'd warned her about Harrison Mills years ago. "Dear Mrs. Blackwood," it read, "I thought you should know. Your old ranch has been abandoned for 3 years. The development company that bought it went bankrupt. The land is being auctioned for back taxes next month. I thought perhaps you'd want to know, in case it matters." Clara stared at the letter for a long time. Then she showed it to Riker. "Do you want to buy it?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe. Is that crazy?" "No crazier than anything else we've done." They attended the auction together. The Vale Ranch looked worse than Clara remembered. Fences completely collapsed, buildings falling apart, the whole property returning to wilderness. But the land itself was still good. The water still flowed. The grass still grew. "What would you do with it?" Riker asked as they walked the property. Clara thought about her mother, who'd built this place from nothing. About her father, who'd destroyed it through weakness. About the girl she'd been, working until her hands bled just to keep it alive. "I want to make it a training ranch," she said slowly, "for women who want to learn ranching but have nowhere to start. We teach them everything: cattle management, land stewardship, business skills. Then we help them start their own operations or find jobs at cooperative ranches." That's ambitious. It's necessary. The cooperative needs skilled workers. Women need opportunities. This solves both problems. Riker smiled. "Then let's make it happen." They bought the Vale Ranch for a fraction of what Marcus had sold it for, spent 6 months rebuilding, hired instructors, developed curriculum, and exactly 6 years after Clara left, she returned to her childhood home as its owner. The first class of the Vale Ranch training program had 20 students, women from across the territory who wanted to learn ranching but had been told it wasn't work for females. Clara taught the opening session herself. "This ranch almost killed me," she told them, standing in the rebuilt barn where she'd hidden from her father so many times. "I worked here for years believing I was worthless, that I'd never be good enough, that my only value was in how useful I could be to men who didn't appreciate me." The women listened, silent. But I was wrong. I wasn't worthless. I was trapped in a system designed to break me. And the moment I left, the moment I chose myself, everything changed. Clara looked at each of them. "That's what this place is now. Not a trap, but a launching point. You'll learn skills here, gain confidence, build strength, and then you'll go out into the world and prove that women can do this work as well as any man. Better, even." One woman raised her hand. "What if we fail?" "Then you get up and try again. Failure isn't the end. It's just information." Clara smiled. I failed more times than I can count. The difference between failure and defeat is whether you keep going. The program grew faster than expected. Within 2 years, they'd trained 60 women. 47 found jobs at cooperative ranches. 8 started their own operations. 5 opened businesses serving the ranching community. The Vale Ranch became as well known as Celeste schools, symbols of what was possible when women were given tools and opportunity. And Clara became something she'd never imagined. A leader, a teacher, a voice for people who'd been told they didn't matter. 10 years after leaving the Vale Ranch in darkness, Clara returned to it in triumph. The property thrived. The training program flourished. The cooperative had grown to 73 ranches across 3 territories. She stood on the porch of the rebuilt ranch house one evening, watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of fire, and thought about the girl she'd been. 22 years old, overweight, dismissed, convinced she'd never be worth anything. That girl would have never believed this life was possible. Riker joined her on the porch, their 2 children, 8-year-old Margaret and 6-year-old Thomas, playing in the yard. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything, nothing, how strange life is." "That's vague," Clara laughed. "I'm thinking about how I almost gave up, so many times. I almost stayed at the Vale Ranch and let it kill me slowly. Almost believed my father when he said I was worthless. Almost convinced myself that someone like me didn't deserve someone like you." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't. Because somewhere inside, even when I couldn't see it, I knew I was worth more. I knew I deserved better." She looked at him. "And now look at this. Look at everything we've built." "You built," Riker corrected. "I just tried to keep up." "We built it together. You, me, Celeste, even your father at the end, all of us choosing to be better than we were." They watched their children play. Margaret was teaching Thomas how to rope a fence post, patient and encouraging even when he kept missing. "She's like you," Riker observed. "Stubborn, determined, refuses to give up." "She's like us," Clara corrected. "She's learning that persistence matters more than perfection." That night, after the children were asleep and the ranch had settled into quiet, Clara sat down to write. Not a business letter, not a proposal, but a story. She wrote about a girl who was told she was too fat, too rough, too much, and not enough all at once. About a father who destroyed everything he touched. About a sister trapped in impossible circumstances. She wrote about escape and survival and the brutal work of becoming someone new. She wrote about power and corruption and the cost of fighting for justice. She wrote about love that chose her instead of settling for her. And she wrote about the truth she'd learned through all of it. Worth isn't determined by appearance or family or society's approval. It's determined by choice, by courage, by the willingness to keep trying even when everything says you should quit. She'd spent most of her life believing she needed to be smaller, quieter, less to be acceptable, but the truth was exactly the opposite. She'd needed to be more, bolder, louder, bigger in spirit, even if never in body. She'd needed to take up space instead of apologizing for existing in it. The story took 3 months to write. When it was finished, Clara showed it to Celeste. "This is us," Celeste said after reading it, tears streaming down her face. "This is our story." "It's every woman's story who's been told she's not enough," Clara said. "I'm thinking about publishing it. Let other women know they're not alone." "Do it, please. Someone needs to hear this." The book published 6 months later under Clara's full name, Clara Vale Blackwood. Some critics dismissed it as melodramatic. Others called it revolutionary. Most just called it honest. It sold 10,000 copies in the first year. Letters poured in from women across the country. Women who'd been told they were too fat, too poor, too damaged to matter. Women who saw themselves in Clara's story and found courage to choose themselves. One letter came from a 17-year-old girl in Ohio. "I was going to marry a man I didn't love because my father said it was my only option. Then I read your book. I realized I had other choices. I'm working now, saving money, planning to go west and learn ranching at your training program. Thank you for showing me it's possible." Clara kept that letter in her desk. Read it whenever she doubted whether any of this mattered. 15 years after arriving at the Blackwood Ranch, Clara stood in front of the Montana Territorial Legislature again. This time, she wasn't proposing legislation. She was receiving an award. For her contributions to Montana's agricultural economy, her advocacy for fair business practices, and her dedication to expanding opportunities for women in ranching, we present the Montana Pioneer Award to Clara Vale Blackwood. The applause was thunderous. Clara accepted the award with shaking hands. "I don't deserve this," she said into the sudden quiet. "I'm not a pioneer. I'm just someone who refused to accept the limitations other people tried to put on me." She looked out at the crowd, saw Riker and Celeste in the front row, saw her children, saw dozens of women she'd trained, taught, helped. "But if this award means something, let it mean this. Your worth is not determined by what other people think of you. It's determined by what you choose to do with the life you're given. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself." More applause. Clara stepped down from the podium and into Riker's arms. "Proud of you," he whispered. "Proud of us," she corrected. That evening, Clara returned to the Blackwood Ranch, her home now, truly and completely. She walked through the property that had once felt so impossible, past the barn where she'd first kissed Riker, through the office where she'd exposed corruption, across the fields where she'd proven she could do work people said women couldn't do. Every step was a memory. Every building was a battle won. She ended up in Victor's old study, now converted into a library. His desk still stood in the corner, though Riker used a different office now. Clara sat in Victor's chair and thought about the man who'd grudgingly accepted her, who'd taught her that power required courage, who'd changed because she'd refused to let him stay comfortable in his cruelty. "I hope you'd be proud," she said to the empty room. "I hope wherever you are, you're watching this and thinking, 'I knew she could do it.'" The room stayed silent, but Clara chose to believe he would have been proud, in his own impossible, complicated way. 20 years after leaving the Vale Ranch, Clara celebrated her 40th birthday surrounded by family, friends, and the community she'd helped build. The party was at the training ranch, the place where her story began and continued simultaneously. Over 300 people attended, ranchers from the cooperative, students from Celeste schools, women from the training program, politicians and business leaders who'd once dismissed her and now sought her advice. Celeste gave a toast. "To my sister who taught me that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival, who showed me that worth is earned through courage, not granted through approval, who proved that the girl everyone underestimates can become the woman everyone respects." Riker spoke next. "To my wife, who spent 20 years showing me what real strength looks like. It's not in domination or control, it's in persistence, in kindness backed by steel, in refusing to let the world make you small." Then Clara's daughter Margaret, now 18 and preparing to take over management of the training ranch, stood up. "To my mother," she said, her voice strong and clear, "who taught me that women can do anything, be anything, that our value isn't in our appearance or our ability to please men. It's in our work, our courage, our willingness to build something better than what we inherited." Clara was crying now, couldn't help it. All these people, all these lives touched, all because she'd climbed onto a horse 20 years ago and chosen herself. Later, when the party had quieted and only family remained, Clara sat with Celeste under the Montana stars. "Do you ever think about Father?" Celeste asked quietly. "Sometimes. Less now than I used to." "Do you forgive him?" Clara thought about that. "I don't know if forgiveness is the right word. I understand him better now. I see how his weakness destroyed him, how his inability to change cost him everything." She paused. "But I also see how we survived him, how we took the worst he gave us and built something beautiful anyway." "We did, didn't we?" Celeste smiled. "Built something he could never have imagined. Because we chose to. That was always the difference. He chose destruction. We chose creation." They sat in comfortable silence, two sisters who'd survived impossible circumstances and transformed their pain into purpose. "Thank you," Celeste said eventually. "For what?" "For leaving first. For showing me it was possible. For coming back for me when you didn't have to." "I'll always come back for you," Clara said. "That's what sisters do." The years continued to pass. The cooperative grew. The training program expanded. Celeste's schools multiplied across the territory. Clara's children grew into adults who understood that privilege came with responsibility. That power should serve others, not just oneself. That worth was measured in impact, not accumulation. Margaret took over the training ranch at 25, running it with the same fierce dedication Clara had shown. Thomas became a lawyer, fighting for fair trade practices and workers' rights. Both of them carried forward the lesson their mother had taught, that the world changes when people choose courage over comfort. Clara herself stepped back from daily operations, though she never fully retired. She wrote 2 more books, consulted on policy, mentored young women entering ranching and business. But mostly, she lived. Actually lived, not just survived. She traveled with Riker, spent time with grandchildren, sat on the porch of the Blackwood Ranch, and watched sunsets without counting the hours until the next crisis. She learned what came after surviving. It was peace, messy and imperfect and hard-won, but real. On her 50th birthday, Clara returned to her father's grave. She hadn't visited in over 15 years. Didn't really know why she was going now. The cemetery was quiet. Marcus Vale's headstone was simple, already weathered by time and Montana winds. Clara stood there, looking at her father's name, and tried to figure out what she wanted to say. "I forgive you," she said finally. "Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying anger. You wasted your life, hurt people who loved you, died alone because you couldn't change." She paused. "But I didn't. I took everything you taught me about who I wasn't supposed to be, and I became her anyway. The daughter you said was worthless built an empire. The fat girl you mocked changed Montana. The failure you predicted became someone people respect." The words hung in the air. "So thank you, I guess, for showing me exactly who I didn't want to be, for making me strong enough to survive you, for teaching me that other people's opinions don't define worth." Clara turned to leave, then stopped. "I hope you found peace. I hope wherever you are, you finally understand what you wasted, what you could have been if you'd chosen differently." She smiled slightly. "And I hope you know that your daughters did what you never could. We chose to be better." She walked away from the grave and didn't look back. That chapter was finally, truly closed. Clara Blackwood lived to be 73 years old. She died peacefully in her sleep at the Blackwood Ranch, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren who'd inherited her stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Her funeral was attended by over 1,000 people. Politicians, ranchers, businesswomen, students she'd taught, lives she'd touched. The Montana governor declared it a day of mourning. Flags flew at half-mast across the territory. But the real memorial wasn't official. It was in the 73 ranches that still operated on cooperative principles she'd established, in the 12 schools that bore Celeste's name and Clara's funding, in the training ranch that had graduated over 800 women into ranching careers. It was in every woman who'd read her books and found courage to choose herself, in every person who looked at impossible circumstances and said, "I can survive this, and then I can build something better." Clara's legacy wasn't in monuments or titles. It was in changed lives, in a system made more fair, in proof that one person choosing courage could ripple outward and transform everything. The day after the funeral, Clara's great-granddaughter, Margaret's daughter, also named Clara, stood on the porch of the training ranch and looked out at the Montana landscape. She was 20 years old, strong, capable, carrying the weight of a legendary name. "Think I can live up to her?" she asked her mother. Margaret smiled. "You're not supposed to live up to her. You're supposed to build on what she started. Take it further. Make it better." "That's a lot of pressure." "That's a lot of opportunity." Margaret put her arm around her daughter. "Your great-grandmother started with nothing but bloody hands and stubborn hope. You're starting with resources, education, and a foundation she built. Imagine what you can do with that." Young Clara thought about it, about the woman she'd never met but whose story had shaped her entire life, about the rejected daughter who became a legend, about worth that wasn't given but chosen. "I'll try," she said. "I'll try to make her proud." "You already do," Margaret said. "Just by trying." That's all she ever asked of anyone. They stood together on the porch as the sun set over the Vale Ranch, painting the Montana sky in shades of fire and gold. Another generation, another beginning. The story continuing forward, built on the foundation one brave woman had laid when she chose herself over everything that told her she was worthless. And somewhere, maybe, Clara Vale Blackwood was watching, smiling, knowing that her choice to climb onto that horse 20 years ago had rippled forward into futures she could never have imagined. that the fat girl nobody wanted had become the woman everyone remembered, not because she was perfect, but because she was real.